Stugotz has proclaimed the Cowboys the best team in the NFL and Jerry Jones an excellent general manager. We'll get to that in a second. He is forever a prisoner of the moment, but a tweeter writes in, I just heard an interview with this suspected white supremacist Matt Sullivan on another anti-black racist Dan Le Batard show. Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant, y'all got to stop giving these anti-black white media members access. Those bastards will turn on black athletes every time.
He's that guy.
A guy may be a burner account.
There are so many of those burner accounts and bots on. I don't even know how those bots work that enter these conversations to be divisive on the racial stuff. Is there someone in a Russian computer room somewhere just typing out under, Vladimir 47435643124375? Hey, Le Batard's a white supremacist. Like, what's that guy doing with his life?
In my lifetime, I don't think I've seen a more perfectly executed military operation than Russia's war on our truth. The misinformation that's out there and the division that's in the United States because of social media and because, according to intelligence reports, Russia just on social media creates these accounts to just take opposite sides. And sometimes, like, it'll be pro-Kaepernick stances. It's just division. They just want people fighting. They just want people not trusting what they see. And it is the single most brilliant military operation that has ever been executed, and I fear that we're forever ruined because of it as a nation.
Seems a bit harsh.
No, but democracy and freedom are under attack.
Truth doesn't matter.
There.
Facts don't matter.
When you say you understand, Stugotz,
Right.
I think Mike and I and anybody in this room probably doesn't have the necessary history and knowledge to know of every military strategy strike throughout the history.
That's why I said my lifetime
of war and division.
Good.
But this thing, the reason that Zuckerberg looks so dangerous and out of touch when during a pandemic, while making billions of dollars, he's sort of electric surfing with an American flag is because he has allowed, by not being vigilant enough and by grabbing dollars at every turn, he has allowed democracy to be attacked this way in a way that you can argue, even though it's not very subtle, feels subtle, because I don't think people realize that we're under attack. That freedom and democracy are under attack from there, Stugotz. You say that you understand, but do you understand the link between insurrection and internet rot brain and some of the stuff happening with Kyrie Irving and everyone living in their own echo chambers and making their own news sources? And then the next step on that is you make your own facts. And the next step on that is just propaganda that allows things like communism to come into your country because propaganda is important to move the masses. I don't know how many people listening to this realize the dual dangers in we're all addicted to our devices with very few exceptions. Those devices are now more capable of following you around than they've ever been, Stugotz. The latest iPhone can tell you exactly where any picture was taken over the last 7 years before you had that iPhone.
I mean, follow me around all you want. I don't care. I mean, I'm driving here. I pull into a garage. I have a heater. Can you hear my voice?
Unfortunately,
Wish I wasn't.
yes.
That's $5.
What?
Yeah,
It's $10.
and actually,
I don't
you have
really
to-
care. And then I go home.
So
and
got
then
to
I play
actually
golf.
pay though,
Yeah,
because
I
the
will.
fine bucket's at $0.
I mean, follow me. My life is boring. Go ahead, follow me all you want. I don't
think
care.
we'll find a lot of scams, a lot of lies, a lot of things that can be prosecuted.
I never understood when people say that. I've got nothing interesting going on, so just invade my privacy illegally. That's fine.
I saw a funny tweet. I wish I could give the person credit. I'm not getting the new iPhone. I don't trust anything that came from China that was turned around in a year that tracks my movement.
Stugotz, you're not scared of any of this. You're just going to keep moving through your life, allowing everyone
keep
to
it moving.
invade your privacy while some guy in Russia or woman in Russia is learning English simply so they can call me a white supremacist.
What am I going to do about it, though? I mean, what am I supposed to do about it? I'm just going to live my life. If people want to follow me around, they'll follow me around.
But I don't know. I don't know how you. I'm sorry, man. Roy's starting his grid of death punishment where he just wraps himself in these little trees
Air
that you put in the
fresheners.
cars,
Right.
and it's more of a punishment for me. My eyes are stinging sitting
Burning
next to him.
everybody's eyes. Yeah.
Yeah, my throat hurts.
It's a lot. But I don't even know how you program these bots because like some of the bots have no purpose other than to tell Adam Schefter immediately after he sends a tweet, my wife left me. Like, how do you program that?
Well, and also in every Instagram post, it's "I'm lonely," and it's a scantily clad woman with 178
yeah.
likes going,
Those-
"I'm lonely."
Oh, it's creepy. I found someone that was pretending to be me off of multiple accounts. That had
Yeah.
like a Facebook dating profile and had like all my photos there. Thank God I don't post photos of my daughter's face because that was mad creepy.
You had a horrible inconvenience that I wouldn't wish on anybody that has to do with borrowed identity stuff that I felt for you.
Yeah.
Just becomes a mess of untangling. Before we get to that, though, Roy, how do you feel about moving if this is so disorienting? Switching seats with either Tony or Chris here so that you can be in a corner of the room a little more isolated while you're wearing how many of these Christmas trees?
10.
Did you think it was going to be easy? We always think all of these things are going to be easy, and that sounded easy, and you're already in an unpleasant realm?
I underestimated the powerful stench of said air fresheners. This is
What's the scent? What is
It
it?
smells like my middle school locker room after everyone has applied Axe body spray.
right. It's called Black Ice. It just happens to match what I'm wearing right now.
So just to clarify for the audience, Roy is paying off a grid of death punishment called the Fall Fine Bomb, where you wear multiple pine air fresheners hanging from your ears and your body. And Roy has worn 10 of these air
They're not
fresheners.
pine though; they're black ice.
Well, it's the pine design, right?
It's not
like
pine
it's
and-
not pine. Yeah.
Quite honestly, I thought
They're
it'd be more
pine
than 10.
trees. Right.
Yeah.
10's kind of a weak number.
Mhm.
yeah, well, I
It's
have
a weak
more.
number.
I mean, look, I'm happy that
You
it's
can't
just
breathe
10.
right
Look,
now.
I'm happy that we got a players coach as commish because if I were buying these things, you got way more, right? Yeah, I'm sorry, man. You gotta do it.
Well, what is the description of the punishment? This thing is an unholy terror on all of our lives. It was a bloodbath.
I'm
This week.
0-3. It has been a calamity. I have not won a single game in the bucket.
And mine is from the week before.
I'm 3-0, and credit to me for balls last week, pulling the
Yeah.
Rams and staying there. I don't give a shit if it's the champs.
Did I lose last week?
I mean, I don't know. You're shady as all get out.
All right. No one knows.
We do know.
What?
and
I mean, can you tell me what you pulled?
we are
No one's checking.
We are keeping the records, and Billy is not here today. You're going to have to forgive us. We're doing a whole bunch of scheduling stuff, so we're going to be matching different people on different days as we start churning out yet more content for you, all of which I continue to remind you is just sampling. You can taste whatever you want on the menu. We've got a lot of stuff that is going out. The Saturday stuff on college football makes us strong in a place where we haven't had the national strength that we've had. The full cast after midnight has become a popular podcast, but we're just asking you on everything that we're putting out there that you taste from the menu. South Beach Sessions and Mystery Crate and Stupidity and Brockmeyer when it returns, and some of the other stuff that we've got coming out. We're giving you Adnan Virk, Cinephile, Cinephobe, the Greg Cody Show featuring Greg Fody. Some are in our universe,
Cody.
some are not.
We promote Cinephobe more than any of the properties, and that's not even one of our properties right now.
Stu, bad news. You had the Seahawks last week,
Oh, that's too bad. Had the golden helmet of life.
and you gave it up.
I did because Chris was going to swap with me.
He was always going to take the $400. You're
I'm
an
not
idiot.
so certain.
It was one of the dumbest things I've ever seen done around here, that you got the golden helmet of life and you sent it back because you were scared of Chris Cody and turned it into a Washington football helmet. No team lost worse. I don't think even your Jets lost worse than the Washington
No.
football team.
It's like saying you want a kick to start overtime.
It haunted me the
No,
entire
it's
weekend.
just I want to
mean, it
lose
did.
when you start
You know what,
overtime. The coin is flipped, and you're like, "I'll take the loss," and you just head back to the locker room.
I don't know.
It was a demonstration of privilege, in my opinion, because Stugotz, that amount of money would not be enough for Stugotz to trade for 3 weeks of freedom.
Oh,
Chris
Stugotz-
Cody would absolutely trade a punishment for $450.
Stugotz is blissfully blind, and ignorance is bliss to all the places where he expresses just appalling privilege.
I will tell you, thank you, Dan. I will tell you that Chris Cody did a phenomenal job selling the fact that it appeared he was going to take my helmet. He did. Like, I looked over at him. He looked excited about it. I thought for sure he was taking my helmet because he knew his dad would never give him that money. His dad ended up giving him that money, which was a shock to all of us. I regret doing it.
Now, keep in mind, the first year of GOD, you gave me $1,000 one time to avoid a swap helmet.
I didn't give you anything.
Oh,
I
privilege over
paid,
there.
and I knew how much I was paying to get out of. I hate this thing. And furthermore, I got to tell the audience, I don't know what happened here, but the reason we were doing it this year is because some life insurance sponsor was coming on board with a sense of humor to sponsor it for us, and then it vanished 7 days before we were supposed to do it, and now we're in it. And Roy, what is the proper description of how many of these Christmas trees you're supposed to be wearing? Is Mike alleging, because Mike can be, and I want to get to this Seth Wickersham book on the Patriots in a second, because in it he quotes Bob Kraft as calling Bill Belichick the biggest bleeping asshole he's ever met in his life.
Is this the final deep dive for Wickersham? It has to be, right?
It's a thick
There are
book.
no more deep dives to take.
It is.
I mean,
It is. The name of the book is right in your wheelhouse, Stugotz. It's Better to Be Feared. This guy reports on this private organization better than anybody. This is the final word on this subject, this dynasty, and there is some stuff in there. I've read some stuff. I'll read it to you. I know you're not going to read.
You've read some of the stuff?
Yeah, because he's going to come on with
Wow. I
us
haven't out yet.
soon.
I pre-ordered the audiobook. I cannot wait to read that thing. It seems like a real page turner. Can't wait to be like, I can't put this thing down.
Kraft, I don't think we've thought of Kraft this way, even though, of course, a billionaire ego at the top of that is running the thing. And at the end, part of the reporting is that Brady was done with what he viewed as Belichick's silly, antiquated thought process on how to coach him.
right.
Belichick thought Brady was done, Stugotz, and when they were going to meet at the end, Brady was pretty much done with Belichick by 2017. And when they were going to meet at the end, Brady, hoping to meet with Belichick to talk about serious stuff, Belichick made that a phone call when Brady wanted a meeting as a way of like, we're done. And that's
Brady wanted a face-to-face. Is that what you're...
yeah, Brady thought,
Right.
and Belichick was too busy to do it. But there are airport hangar meetings with Roger Goodell and Kraft, and like there's all sorts of Game of Thrones stuff. I don't think of Kraft this way, but of course, a billionaire owner who's got this toy that is excellent calls Belichick an idiot savant and says, hey, I gave him that opportunity. He's quoted as saying, I gave him that opportunity. So, of course, while we're sitting there thinking, well, does Belichick think he's responsible for Brady? Kraft is thinking, well, I'm responsible for both of them.
Right.
I'm in charge. I'm the one. I'm the genius here. So there's a lot to cover in that book. But, Chris, what's the formal description of how many, as Mike puts, yet more Christmas trees on a very unhappy Roy? Roy, I got to tell, stylishly, you might be starting something here because you look great. You're wearing Christmas trees as earrings. You look stylish. It does match your DraftKings gear. I think you might be able to pull this off as a look once inevitably
It's a terrible
that
look.
tree. How long does it take for that smell to fade? Months, correct?
Yeah, well, a couple weeks in a car if you have one. This is going to be here for a while. You kind of look like Captain Lou Albano to me.
It's a great reference.
It really is.
Rubber bands in your beard. So what is the description? How many does he have to wear? Because Mike is now applying more and making it yet more unpleasant.
The only description in the punishment is the word multiple. So multiple can mean two, or it can mean emptying a package on Roy's hat.
I I bought 3 sleeves of 6, so that's 18 total.
Wow.
I initially put on 10.
It's on you.
Mike put on 6 more.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he's gonna empty out.
I think I just heard one of the trees hit the microphone. I'm worried about this scent still being on you for several days. Once you've had it on you, put it on the poll, please, Whittingham at Le Batard Show. Is Roy going to smell Christmas trees 4 days from now?
Those pine trees will stay with you for days. You're right, Dan. I'm with you.
Well,
Like that
they're right near.
smell,
The other thing is they're way too close to his nose. You're never this close for this sustained. This is now a terrible punishment that I would have chosen because I would have thought it was easy.
It's also too close to my eyes, and apparently there are fumes because my eyes are now
Oh
officially
boy.
stinging.
Jeez.
Okay, we need to. We can't have stinging
Hey,
eyes.
my eyes are stinging too. Play like a champion.
Yeah, but they're not an inch away from your eye.
Did you want to talk about
I
this,
had the Rams, Roy.
this identity theft nightmare? Because I'm
What happened to me 2 years ago? Yeah, it took me 2 years to dig myself out of someone stealing my identity and filing taxes as me. The hoops that I had to jump through with government entities, which, as you know, are a huge pain in the ass to get a hold of. I just had this issue with Miami-Dade Water, where I fixed a leak. I did everything in my power. All I needed them to do was just send me paperwork, and it took me 7 calls to get it done. So, yeah, 2 years of dealing with the IRS because someone pretended they were me. Thankfully, I have a unique PIN. Here's what I'd recommend anybody do on the front end. Just request a unique PIN number when you file excuse me, the $5. Damn it. Sorry.
It's strong, Mike.
it's-
Wow.
It's the trees. It's the
air fresheners, man.
trees. Yeah, it's
$10.
the air
I
fresheners.
think.
Clear
Yeah,
your
you
throat.
did twice. I heard it twice. I mean,
It's interesting you should mention that because you paid $5 after doing it
Right.
twice, and I was going to let it slide. But since you're doing it to
Really?
Mike now,
Okay.
yes, because
All right.
you also did it twice. and-
trying to replenish this thing.
I'm very sorry, but it is very strong.
so now it's an
just-
unpleasant punishment for everyone in the room. You guys in the back row are also finding this unpleasant.
I think Mike is probably getting it much worse. In here, it's just kind of
As opposed to me.
It is filling the room with smell. But I think for Tony and I, it's just
The thing is, I'm a little closer to Roy than you are, Witty. So it's like passing the fumes back this way to me, and I can taste the black ice.
I think we need to move Roy. I don't think this is fair for this to become a,
Move him where,
a
though?
punishment for everybody. Move him to the back row a little bit to give somebody some freedom. I also think that Mike's being too aggressive putting this all over his face now. This is now,
Right.
there are way too many of these, and I believe we're headed straight toward a problem. I don't know. Again, we haven't vetted the Christmas trees, so we don't know what the liability issues are on your eyes stinging.
Now he has tape on his face, which is a whole separate issue, and it feels like a separate punishment. That's going to hurt when he has to tear it off. And Mike, you owe $10. I didn't forget.
He's very vigilant
Well,
about
I put my 10 in.
But
I
you
mean,
did finally
yep.
put your 10 in, and Mike will be here in a moment with his $10.
That is awful, Mike, what happened to you. Seriously. Like the amount of time it must have taken for you to get out
2
of that.
years, he
Figure- I
said.
know.
2 years he was fighting it.
I'm
I still have to deal with it because it ruined portions of my credit that I had to get cleared up. So always request a unique PIN when you file for your taxes, people.
I'm sorry, Mike.
Chris, can you get Stugotz has also declared it the greatest college football weekend of all time, to go with Jerry Jones being a great GM now and the Cowboys being the best team in the NFL. We'll get to all of that in a second, but I wanted to ask all of you, because I know I'm fascinated by it and I don't understand it. It's not quite as fascinated and not understanding it as Bitcoin, but I am fascinated and don't understand the Netflix business model of just spending in a way that is trying to and is successfully taking over television. But one of the parts that I don't understand is why their data points are so valuable and why they are so secretive and put just enormous value on. We're not telling you our information about what works and what doesn't and why it works. And they came out with some numbers on what their most popular stuff is. And Netflix isn't quite the Patriots, but they protect their data. And even filmmakers like Billy Corbin, who you heard from in the local hour and you'll hear from again later this week, he knows Cocaine Cowboys was popular. He made the movie, but he doesn't know how popular.
Right.
They just don't tell you. They pay these enormous sums of money where they're making feature films, and they will not tell even the people involved. This is what did well. This is why it did well, because they're trying to accrue all of this information so they know when they cancel a show after 3 years, don't need that anymore. We know how to get that demo. Or they've got 5 shows like that. This is how I know how to grab what I need to do to grab 18 to 34 Hispanics, or 18. I need to grab people in France, and they're just collecting all this data. So there were some numbers that came out, and I am curious if you are curious in what Netflix most popular stuff has been, because it's not stuff, much of it is not stuff that I have seen.
Very curious. For me, I don't know. I can't speak for the rest of the room, but I am curious. Yes.
Subscriptions for Netflix, they're at about 193 million subscriptions. So that part of the business model you understand. 193. It used to be the ESPN business model. 120 million people are paying you a monthly fee, whether they're watching it or not. And this is how Netflix has gotten ahead of everybody. Disney Plus is trying to slow the gap, but ahead of everybody in replacing television, being television, as saw before anybody that streaming was going to be the thing.
My assumption about this would be is that, so you are describing demographics in a very old school way, which is by age and by gender and by race. But I think what Netflix has found is that there are even smaller micro targets of, like, for example, teenage girls, like, you know, certain kinds of romantic comedies. They'll make movies just for them. There's like a demographic of people that want to see shows like Cocaine Cowboys, that are into either true crime or into kind of like documentaries about subjects like that. There are so many more sub areas of content that they have found to be big enough that you can make things specifically targeting. So they're almost more making algorithmic pieces of content than they are things that are just, they're guessing will have broad appeal. They have, I would imagine, dozens and dozens of targets that they're trying to find based off the popularity of certain shows.
They are spending, you saw during the pandemic, there were like 5 companies in America, whether it was Apple and Google and Facebook, Amazon. Netflix was one of them that is pouring all of its money, all of it, back into content, but only make 3% of their own stuff. So 97% of what they're making is farmed out. And of those 193 million subscribers, Stugotz, more than half watched Extraction. Extraction, a feature film, Chris Pratt, big and action, and just
Chris Hemsworth.
Chris Hemsworth.
Chris
Fine.
Pratt was in the
Yeah.
Amazon one.
Yep.
Thank you.
$5.
Yeah.
That is a fine, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is.
Wow, the fine bucket right after Greg Cody got $0 from the fine bucket. The fine bucket now has $25 in it. But Extraction, does that surprise you at all that one of those smoldering Hemsworth brothers is right at the top of the list of it counts as a watch if you watch 2 minutes of it. 2 minutes. So more people.
That's a watch for them,
Yes,
2 minutes?
But more people watched, fewer people watched longer the movie Bird Box, which wasn't even very good. And I think The Irishman is third, but it's a very long movie. But 2 minutes counts as a watch. Does it surprise you at all that Extraction is at the top of this list?
It does not surprise me. It doesn't surprise me that amount of people, their subscriber base, watch that movie. I am surprised that 2 minutes counts as a watch. That feels a little bit like cheating to me.
Do you know what industry you work in?
Yeah.
Because we were counting on that for the longest time.
Oh, I would kill for 2 minutes.
Yeah. I am so pumped for Extraction 2 because if you, spoiler alert, it seems as though a lot of people in our audience already watched this, so not really spoiling it for that many. There's a bit of a cliffhanger at the end. It appeared as though Tyler Rake died. And you remember Tyler Rake is played by Chris Hemsworth. Earlier in the film, he killed someone with a rake, which was kind of cool because his name is Rake. Anywho, at the end of the movie, it appears like maybe not dead, which seemed pretty improbable at the time, but I don't care. You could have impaled him. You could have cut him in half. And if you told me in the sequel he's still alive, great.
If I
More
told you it
rake
was
deaths.
most popular Netflix movie ever, you would have said that's being resuscitated.
I think
somehow.
that was the best action movie of that year. Like, it was awesome to watch.
Television shows, Stugotz. The most popular show ever on television, on Netflix,
Right.
Bridgerton. Do you watch any of that?
I do not. No. Bridgerton.
I know who did though.
Bridgerton.
I know who did.
Whitty absorbed Bridgerton.
Whitty, I'm sure was all over that.
Whitty loved it.
It showed up after you finished binging Downton Abbey. It showed you may like
And the
Bridgerton.
Crown.
How do you guys feel about costumey period pieces, just in general? Because
Meh.
I
I could do without them.
put it on the poll, Whittingham. Can you do without costumey period pieces? Because to me, you can tell me, I imagine that show looks beautiful, and costume design on that show seems like something that would be a delight for a creative person to be in charge of. And it also, every time I look at it, I'm like, oh no, don't want to even spend any time in those rooms. Like, if I could have access to a time machine and go back to that time and walk into one of those rooms, I'd be like, you know what? I'm good. I'm just going to watch Thursday Night Football and the Jags.
Everything is so dusty, I feel like, in those rooms. I walk in, I'm like,
Does it? Well, what's happening there is Netflix's algorithms. Like, I would have argued there's just no way that something that's a costumey period piece will be the most popular thing on Netflix of all sorts, but I would obviously be wrong.
Dan, you know what it is? Sex. Sex sells, Dan, and do they have a lot of it, right, Woody?
Can confirm.
Does Lupin have a lot of sex? Does The Witcher have a lot of sex? Because those are second and third, and Billy will be very sad that he's not here today because, not surprisingly, Money Heist is up there.
damn.
Love
Yes,
that.
the heist.
Yes.
I'm surprised that it's not just all heists. I'm surprised that a costumey period piece has been something that has replaced the heist.
Dan, it's also not Lupin, it's Lupin. Let's get it right,
Yeah.
please.
Oh Lord.
Chris Whittingham is a fancy lad.
$5.
Is that another $5?
Yes.
All right, so
Yeah.
we're all in for $10.
Now that we know that
wait
there's
a
money
minute.
at the end of this rainbow, nobody wants what happened to Greg Cody to happen to them. We're gonna get our $36.
So we're at $30 now
Yeah.
in the fine bucket, and we're very early in the proceedings today. Before we get to Stugotz's thoughts on college football, best college football weekend ever, and Jerry Jones being the best GM in the league and the Cowboys being the best team in the league. The Wall Street Journal, this is the week, Stugotz. We've talked about what a monster rating this Brady returns to Belichick story is going to be. And
Yep.
it's not surprising that you will see this week some of the excerpts on Wickersham's book before this game. Some of these excerpts are going to start leaking. And also, the Wall Street Journal, Stugotz, has been holding since the summer an interview they did with Tom Brady. Tom Brady's not going to say anything interesting, but this is when you know in a headline that all they're doing, whether it's the Wall Street Journal or any newspaper, is telling you, we got an interview, when they throw this headline on a story the way the Wall Street Journal did. Brady speaks his mind.
Oh my God.
It's Brady lashes out. Brady speaks out. All it is Brady did an interview this summer where he talked about his fashion line, but it comes out, Brady speaks out, and they put it this week, an interview done this summer with a photo shoot done this summer, because this is the week that Brady is going to get all the regular season hype.
I might spring for the Wall Street Journal now. I mean, that $1 they asked
Oh,
you to
that's
pay.
going to bring the chickens out
What do you
quickly.
mean?
Yeah.
You won't even so much as ask for a login. Wall Street Journal.
Fraud Street Journal. You can take it from the fine bucket. You wouldn't pay for it.
You're gonna get that expensive middle of media. If you saw a free login on the ground, you wouldn't bend down to pick it up.
Have you watched Peyton's Places yet?
I'm getting to him.
I might spring. Any sentence that starts that way from Stugotz, like you're headed, you
Means
are
I'm not springing.
you are cannonballing into a lie. I might spring. That is not a commitment. It is the flimsiest of entry points to something that is not a guarantee.
No cash will be sprung.
You know what, though? There are two choices with Stugotz. Either he doesn't, which is the most likely scenario, or he does to read this one article, and the Wall Street Journal has a customer for life. Because Stugotz will have forgotten about having read this one article and paid that one time, and he will have paid over the course of a lifetime $800 for one article.
I would legitimately like to monitor. If I had one of these devices that we speak of that follows Stugotz on all his schemes everywhere that he says is boring and says, my life is an open book, come look at it. I would love to follow him and just see the headline on whatever it is that makes him spring for the first time to spend money on an interest in reading. I don't know what that story would have to be for him to make the steps of, I'm going to fill this out on the internet. I'm going to I need to read this so badly. I actually did this recently, felt obligated to do it with the Washington Post, even though I try to just support a handful of newspapers just to support newspapers. When they had I felt like I would have been ill-informed if I didn't read all their reporting on the Washington football team's sexual harassment scandal stuff. There was so much stuff coming out, and it seemed like Daniel Snyder might lose his team over it, and I wanted to have the details. So that story made me do it. I can't imagine what the story would be to make you do it.
It would be Phil Steele's football preview.
Stu, you put in a little Bitsky for Chuba Hubbard or what?
I already had him as my
You
backup.
already had him?
I drafted McCaffrey, so.
Got to get the handcuff.
Yep. Now McCaffrey's only out one more week. That was good news. He avoided the
So it's a bad thing I spent $87 on him.
Chuba Hubbard.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he avoided the IR.
No wonder nobody else bid for him.
I would still. You had an $87 bid and no one else bid.
It's been a nightmare in our Batard show league, Tony.
Oh, I know.
My
it's been
God.
so bad.
Wait, how much free agency money do you have?
We get 200 for the season.
And you
somebody,
just blew 87 on Chuba Hubbard for a week?
Well, for 2 weeks, right? This week and next week.
They're saying McCaffrey will miss one more week and then be back.
I'm putting my chips in the corner of, hey, he's probably going to miss a couple more games.
You put 87 chips in the corner.
I did.
I understand that.
Out of 200.
Yeah, it was probably 85.
You
Too
gotta
many.
be careful
on the COVID protocol being involved.
Yeah.
You got to be careful with that, Hammy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just tucking it away for another day. Rainy day, maybe.
It seems like a very small, compact hammy that would recover quicker than the normal hammy. Does that make sense?
No,
Is that how science
Seems
works?
like
No, I don't
his
think so.
Mike
hammies,
knows what I'm saying.
his hamstrings
No, I
look
don't think so.
massive.
Right.
Yeah, because they are massive.
Yeah.
He's got one of the better lower bodies in the sport.
But small, compact, not like Derrick
McCaffrey's-
Henry's hammy would take longer to recover.
Compare
Longer.
anybody to Derrick Henry, but
Do
Christian
you
McCaffrey doesn't
have
bad
enough
size.
information? We are the show that I believe has planted our flag in the real estate of we don't mind longing in 2021 for a man's lower body. Do you have a top 5 in the first 3 weeks of the season that you have discovered because you've been checking out legs and thighs and hamstrings? What were the nicknames? I forgot already. A couple of running backs, I think Giovanni Bernard is one of them, have nicknames for their thighs and legs that are monsters and that are creative nicknames for their lower bodies.
The greatest thighs in the history of the NFL, and perhaps sports, by the way, and I don't even think it's debatable, is Robert Newhouse. Now, many people are saying, who the hell is Robert Newhouse?
You're talking about the 1970s Dallas Cowboys? I bet if you look at his weight and height right now, my guess is he's like 210.
I'll remember it the way I want to remember it. Those were the biggest thighs in the history of the NFL. He was a fullback, yes, for the Dallas Cowboys and Tony Dorsett. Go check him out, kids. Look at those thighs.
If you want to do it historically, Ron Gant in a baseball uniform, the arms of Michael Pittman in football. Remember Michael Pittman, a Tampa Bay running back that was thoroughly...
His son is playing now for the Colts.
Was that Hayward Jr. I saw running around over there, Ironhead's kid?
Oh, get out of here.
I don't know, but I mean, it might be.
It is Cam Hayward, yeah.
They're all over the place now.
Oh, my God.
These guys are all over the sport. Orlando Woolridge's body, Alonzo Spellman's body is something. When you're among professional athletes and somebody's body leaps out at you because they're extra muscled. I remember on those, nuclear rosters that the 2003 Hurricanes had, early 2000s. You had guys like Ed Reed and others saying of Andre Johnson in the shower, saying, that dude has muscles on top of where his muscles are, because he was such a ridiculous physical specimen. So have I filibustered enough, longing for men across the decades, Mike, to get your top 5 list ready so that you give us top 5 lower bodies in the sport?
Oh, you wanted lower bodies in the sport right now? Because I have actually noticed body transformations in the sport.
Different list though, Mike.
It's a totally different list. But the one that he wants, I can rattle off in like real quick. Just
Asante Samuel's kid, by the way, just had an interception last week.
Get out of here.
Yeah, he's
Asante
awesome.
Samuel
He's
was
really
on
good.
our
Asante-
show
that
3
was-
years ago.
That was a hell of a draft pick by the Chargers, because I believe he hasn't been picked on for a touchdown once this season.
Really
He's a
good.
ball hawk.
Yeah.
Ball hawk.
Lockdown.
Ball hawk.
Why are you saying it like that?
You had to hammer it home. It was a good job out of you.
AJ Dillon says that he'd like to introduce defenses to Quadzilla and the Quad Father.
Yeah, you remember that dude at Boston College?
I love it.
Holy cow.
The Quad Father.
You talk about Robert Newsom. He's 247 pounds. Please look up the size and weight of Robert Newsom.
It's Robert Newhouse. $5 more.
God
Oh
damn
my
it.
God, no. Probably 10
Yes.
because he made
This
this
is
mistake twice.
unbelievable. I'm
Amazing.
$15 in. What is the size and weight of this
He's
person?
5'10", 210 pounds.
Check out the thighs. And
AJ
Chris-
Dillon, 6 foot 250.
Oh, wow. Wow. Just check out the thighs on
I
Newhouse.
did. They're somewhat impressive,
Thank you.
albeit the photographs are in black and white.
Are they Quadzilla and the Quad Father? Because it sounds like AJ Dillon has basically chunks of Robert Newhouse.
Good job.
I was scared of it still.
I can tell.
I was walking around like there was a speed bump right after the word new.
Walking on shards of glass. in the
I'd
room
forgotten
over
it
there.
already. This is a part of my childhood because there were basically 2 fullbacks, running backs from that era that I remember. It's Mark Van Egan and that guy, because we covered the Cowboys back then the way we the way we cover them right now. We cover the Cowboys where it's like, of course their fullback matters. They're the Cowboys. It's why we gave Moose Johnston one of the good broadcasting gigs.
When Stugotz said the name, I thought that Robert Newhouse was a backup tight end for the Packers that Aaron Rodgers turned into 30 catches for 460 yards, not a Cowboys fullback from the 70s.
Stugotz, is very proudly descending. Proudly. No problems whatsoever. I'm going to actively choose to speak of athletes that were something 20 years before Whittingham was born.
I'm not going to stop.
I know, unfortunately. I know. I'm well aware of this. This is one of the anchors. I know you're not going to stop. It's only going to get worse and worse. I know what I'm married to. Mike Ryan, are you ready to do your top 5 list of
I have 2 top 5s, Sam.
all right, let's do
Let's
it.
Really?
let's give me a little space, because right now I'm updating. I'm trying right now on my computer screen. I have a photo of Denzel Perryman as a Raider, and I'm inspecting the lower body. I want to make sure this is thorough because I haven't updated my rankings in quite some time. So we'll pause on that. But I do have my top 5 body transformations that I've noticed entering this season.
I learned, I did not know. I found this jarring. I don't know if Whittingham found it jarring. I don't know if Roy found it jarring. While watching Raiders Dolphins, I learned, whoa, Denzel Perryman is a Raider? Did not know that. And the announcers are already referring to him as veteran Denzel Perryman. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, this dude was just a sophomore. I just saw this guy and his arms and him looking more athletic or more muscular than anyone on the field. Wasn't he just at the University of Miami? Wasn't he going to be a hugely impactful player as a top pick with the Chargers? Why is he with the Raiders now? What happened?
This may be his 3rd team, and he's been in the league for maybe 8 years now.
His time at the University of Miami overlapped with mine. So I know precisely how long he's been in the league, but I also understand, like, when these guys just kind of blend together in University of Miami teams, you can't really tell apart. I completely understand why you just forgot that he hasn't been in school that recently.
I did not think of Denzel Perryman as a veteran who played for the Raiders. but we've got kids all over the league. This is how I'm going to age. We're talking about Stugotz descending into Robert Newhouse talk. I'm just going to keep lamenting this slow descent into total mortality and dementia by just, getting names wrong and shaking a fist at, what do you mean, Perriman? Isn't he in his third year in the league? I'm just going to misplace 5 years at a time.
His son is going to be in the league in 5 years, and you'll be like, what the hell?
Top 5, Mike. Which one do you want to start with?
Body transformations that I've noticed, and they're not all good, Dan.
I can give you, though, plenty of time. If you need more time, I've got Brady stuff, and
I can also give myself more time by delivering a first top 5, pausing, and then giving you what you want.
All right. Let's go ahead and do the first top 5. These are not necessarily all compliments,
These are not all compliments. They're just things that I have noticed, and they're not necessarily in order. These are just 5 body transformations that I have noticed, perceptible to the eye watching TV, so it's pretty dramatic.
Not necessarily in order is blaspheming against the order of these.
Okay, well, then I'll just do this, and we're good.
Order down.
Yep. Reorder.
Excellent. I'm glad you were so meticulous about that.
Yep. Flip. Okay.
Number 5, the 5th body transformation Mike Ryan has noticed.
Matt Ryan. Pliable.
Matty Ice.
Yeah.
What do you mean pliable?
I've been watching his pregame routine, a lot more flexible in years past. Also, I think he's wearing a different cut on his jersey sleeve because he's a little bit more svelte. He realizes, hey, I'm a former MVP. I'm getting up there in age. I saw how long Tom Brady can do it. I want to be like that. Unfortunately, I don't think he's going to be like that because he was trying to evade a sack and it looked a little cement-footed. However, there was another play that he made with his feet, so who knows? But he's putting in the work, and I respect that.
I don't trust a quarterback with loose-fitting sleeves.
Yeah, the long boy one. Yeah.
Jacoby Brissett, I knew that it was going poorly from the second I saw the sleeves on his shirt. If you have loose-fitting sleeves, I'm out.
The Falcons have scored 48 points this year.
Whittingham, put it on the poll, please, at Batard Show. Do you trust a quarterback with loose-fitting sleeves?
It's a great take. It's the number one reason why no one will pay attention to the leaps Daniel Jones has made this year. Daniel Jones is one of the most athletic quarterbacks in the league, but he's got a lot of things working against him. Number 1, the face. Number 2, the sleeves.
You talk about Daniel Jones, and I think the audience is noticing this as it happens because it's crazy to watch things like this that are generally pretty imperceptible. But the change at the quarterback position, where you see the aging out of the Matt Ryans of the world, and all of you are noticing, oh, look, when Roethlisberger and Brady and Matt Ryan scramble, oh, good God, that's not what the position is anymore, or it's trending toward not being. Even Justin Herbert, if you consider him a pocket passer, that's not how he's leaving the pocket. He's leaving the pocket as an amazing athlete, not the last years of Johnny Unitas trying to stumble around with cement shoes. You notice, you're laughing at Ben Roethlisberger, at Brady, and at Matt Ryan when they scramble out of the pocket because they look like 40-year-olds playing against everyone out there as young 20s Hollywood Brown.
Or even like just average Joes at 25 would look. Like me running around out there now is what Tom Brady looks like as a professional athlete. It was just, he looks like a civilian playing in a game of carnage.
He really does. How is Derek Carr in terms of scrambling? Do you laugh at him when he does it?
Less so, but he's younger, less mileage. But I do think what's happening here, to speak to what Whittingham is saying, is that someone you saw on the street who otherwise you would look at and say that man has an athletic build and is a good athlete and in great shape for, well, maybe not Roethlisberger, but is in great shape for a human being. That person has my feet. My heavy feet. They're running around with what would be my heavy feet. And I'm not saying my as in your, I'm saying Dan Le Batard's feet. I want whatever you imagine my feet to move around in if I'm doing a shuttle drill, that these quarterbacks are otherwise.
I love that visual. You doing a shuttle.
Or maybe if you want to do it lower, even it could be my shins and my ankles and my calves too, like everything below the knee. Like otherwise they are an athlete that is like not eating a strawberry for 9 months because the sugar content is too much. But below the knees, they haven't taken care of anything. And they scramble out of the pocket, and now they are creating weekly Sunday laughter for you because I felt bad about myself laughing at Ben Roethlisberger on Sunday because there were so many plays where I'm like, oh, that must be terrible to age that way. And everyone's moving real fast and you used to do things. And now you're falling to the floor and your face mask is going to be filled with grass as 3 guys jump over you with the football, laughing as much as America is.
He fell once. There was no one around him.
I know. He rolled to his right. It's absolutely right. And it's like someone shot him in the side from the side he was running to, and he had been sniped and simply collapsed after throwing the football.
Also, the playing surface at that stadium has been awful my entire lifetime. And yet Ben Roethlisberger used to be able to negotiate it. It appears as though he can no longer.
I just love Ben realizing, because this is how I imagine it happened. He's got a tall boy in front of him on the kitchen table, and he's watching some special. He's not reading it. And they're talking about Tom Brady is taking care of his body all his life. And like a cartoon light bulb goes up over Ben. This was 3 months ago. And he's like, oh, and he puts the beer away. And he's like, now I'm going to do what he's done for 20 years. I'm going to see if I can do it in 3 months. I'm going to do some sprints on this treadmill. I'm going to go in the backyard and do some shuttle drills. And I'm going to get out there 9 pounds lighter next season and see if I can just totally reverse the aging process.
I have him with the trash bag in the backyard, like trying to really sweat out that beer. Oh, come on.
I have him trying kale for the first time the next day.
Kale smoothie.
I'll have one of these.
Too much sacrifice, Tomlin. I can't do this. Brady eats kale every day for decades. He grazes more than eats.
I can't stop watching this play.
Which one?
It's Ben making a little shuttle pass, and he just falls.
Falls right over on his side. Top 5 change bodies. Number 4.
Von Bell, safety, Cincinnati Bengals.
Wow.
Dude put on 20 libs,
Thick.
easy. This guy actually jumped off the screen in that Big Ben Roethlisberger game.
Please, Whittingham, do what you were going to do there.
Libs.
Who calls it libs?
Libs.
20. You're in too big a hurry to call it pounds.
Dude put on 20 libs, easy.
It's not even LBs.
It's not,
It's libs. It's not a. He added 20 liberals.
You didn't notice this guy? You didn't notice this guy in the game against the Steelers? I don't know how much of that game you were watching. Most of us have watched it through
We're
viral
laughing
clips.
at Ben.
I was
Yeah, but
watching
that's-
Roethlisberger.
We've basically
Unless-
watched it through Vine.
Unless Roethlisberger tripped and threw it into his chest, I didn't notice a Bengals defender.
So anytime, on the rare occasion that someone would actually make it to the second level of the Bengals defense, Von Bell would come in as like the third guy and totally clean up the pile and just ferociously rake at whoever was holding the ball. And it looks so menacing. I'm like, who is this guy? Is that the same Bell that was in New Orleans? Totally different body type now. He is put in work. 20 LBs.
I don't know why. Put it on the poll, Whittingham, please, at Batard Show. Is the guy who calls LBs libs a douche that you don't want to spend any time around? This clawing that Mike speaks of, I don't know what's going on with me. I really don't on my Sundays. But I'm watching, and maybe it's just aging and knowing more about how big and strong and fast these people are getting and how ridiculous it is that is being done for a living because the bodies are going to break. But when Mike talks about somebody arriving at a pile where he's gained 20 pounds of muscle in a weight room over the offseason and he's just clawing at the ball, it just seems deeply unpleasant to me. Everything happening at wherever it is the football is in that sport. I'm watching and I'm being made I'm enjoying it because the first 3 weeks have been wildly entertaining and Stugotz aesthetically. It doesn't feel like this constipated three-yard pass shit. It feels like, all these teams have figured out that their short passing games can be running plays. And so it opens up the field to all the speed and all the athleticism. And you can sit there, watch CD Lamb and be like, look at that guy physically. Like, look at what's playing that position physically.
You have Wilson, Murray, you have Matthew Stafford, you have Josh Allen. Like, it's Lamar Jackson. It's a different NFL.
DK Metcalf.
Yes, right.
Like, it's not Brandon Marshall anymore, bigger than everyone else, but not also faster than everyone else.
Arthur Smith is ruining the Atlanta Falcons because they've gone to this West Coast bullshit when they weren't good, but you knew their games were going to be fun. I already told you, Matt Ryan is pliable now. Throw the ball downfield. Just if you're watching the Falcons, lock in on Calvin Ridley and see how frustrated this dude is playing. You have Kyle Pitts,
Mike,
and you're throwing the ball 2 yards beyond the line of scrimmage max. It's disgusting to watch what's happening to the Falcons.
I think that we don't understand and know football enough to actually know how great Julio Jones is or was and how much he made Matt Ryan an MVP because he was a cheat code, the same way that A.J. Green kept Andy Dalton in the league for 10 years because you could just throw it to one place on the field and there's your deep game.
He made Ridley good. I mean, Ridley's been bad since Julio Jones left.
Okay, but somebody's got to get the numbers there.
I saw Matt Ryan play without Julio Jones because he suffered that Liz Frank injury for a while, and he would still stretch the field. Whenever Julio Jones was out, he would still stretch the field with Calvin Ridley. I know Matt Ryan is probably due to fall off sooner than Tom Brady did, but I don't think the fall is this precipitous.
You don't think that when you pair some of these guys together, that yes, of course, Ruggs is super fast, but the reason Ruggs is behind your secondary or Lockett, it's because there's also a Waller. It's because there's also a DK Metcalf.
I think you need to give a little credit to Ruggs cutting the top off that defense too.
But what I'm asking you is, if you've only got one speed guy, then you've got Fuller, and you've got no one else they're scared of. Like you can't have you have to have. In order for a quarterback to be an MVP, they were up 23 in the Super Bowl.
I mean, NFL speed is different. Like a speed guy in the NFL, there's like 5 we're talking about. That's why Deshaun Jackson's still in the league.
But you understand why their offense would look better with Ridley as their number 2.
Of course.
Oh, naturally.
Yes.
Naturally. But I don't understand why their offense looks this bad with Ridley as their number 1. Calvin Ridley's a better receiver than Julio Jones is right now.
They're averaging 15 points.
Calvin Ridley was a better receiver than Julio Jones was last year within that very same offense. Calvin Ridley is not this bad. Calvin Ridley should be more productive. They changed their head coach. They changed their style of play. That's what's different about the Atlanta Falcons.
And the difference with Arthur Smith is he doesn't have Derrick Henry anymore, and that's why he was looking so good in Tennessee. And all of a sudden, Mike Davis and Cordero Patterson are your running backs. You're trying to establish a run every play.
There have been 2 teams that I've been screaming at my television, how is this the plan? Number 1, it's Pittsburgh. How the hell was that the plan? No succession. And the other one's Atlanta. You bring in a run-heavy offensive mind in Arthur Smith, and your big plan is Carolina's backup, and his backup is going to be Cordero Patterson, who 10 years into his career, we're going to put him full-time at running back.
Weren't they talking about trading Matt Ryan all offseason?
They should have. They should have, because that's a plan. That's foresight.
They couldn't do it, Mike.
What is this playing style? If you're going to go run heavy, why don't you invest in that position? Wayne Gallman's probably the best pure running back on their roster. Doesn't even dress. I'm very confused by the Atlanta Falcons. Didn't think this list, which is ridiculous, would lead to such serious sports discussion.
They were down 3 late in the second half to the Bucs. I mean, on the road. I'm just saying.
Oh,
Mike.
will you stop doing that?
I'm just saying.
What is
they're 1 and 2.
What
they're
is
in the
that?
mix.
What kind of stat usage is that? What? Explain to me what you think you were contributing to that conversation.
I don't think they're as bad as Mike is making them out to be. That's all I'm saying. Matty Ice will have his day again.
Okay, can you just explain to me? You just heard that was a thorough conversation.
It really was. Good job by Mike.
What were you doing?
Just throwing in, adding to the conversation.
Can I finish without you doing the thing that you do, which is trying to cover this up with kitty litter? I just want to understand why you thought it was good analysis. You want to get in here with some of your kitty litter? Go ahead.
I don't.
I want to understand what you thought you were contributing with a halftime score from week 1. I don't want to be mad at you. I want to understand. After all these years, I don't want to argue about this anymore. I just want to have a loving relationship with you. And this is what our marriage is. And this is the way that arguments are going to break out. I want to understand, as someone I've been married to for 20 years, who I love, who has been doing this with me for 20 years and has seen the evolution of data and people getting smarter about metrics as you descend into, no, I'm just going to do it dumber and dumber and dumber. I want to know what you were contributing to an Atlanta Falcons conversation in terms of analysis, what you were illuminating the audience with when you explained to it that in week 1, the Falcons were down at the half by a field goal, and that means something.
It was week 2, $5.
Oh, no.
Number 3, Mike Ryan.
Kareem Hunt load.
That's a good number 2 running back. Good God. Good God.
Best in the league.
Just think if he were still in Kansas City.
Oh my God.
Considering their running game struggles and how Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who's probably coming off one of his better games at 100 yards, who's been so nondescript, they haven't been able to replace Kareem Hunt. Cleveland got lucky. I know he had that one incident with the video that made its way in the TMZ, and it was speeding on the books, but maybe something else was going on. But John Dorsey did a couple of good things in Cleveland, taking a chance on Kareem Hunt, and Kareem Hunt repaying the Browns organization, taking a lesser deal as a restricted free agent, reaping the benefits. And when he does inevitably hit the open market, he's going to make a lot of money. He was a great player for the Browns yesterday. On Sunday.
It's interesting, Mike.
Fine.
Is it a fine?
Shit.
I don't think. Why is that a fine?
We're season on everything.
I don't think
Yeah,
that's
the
a
day wrong.
fine.
If I
said
catch
yesterday.
if I catch it before you, it shouldn't be a fine.
I don't think it's a fine getting a day wrong. I know that Stugotz is fine happy, but your
Everyone's getting
team,
me.
is it accurate to say about your Cleveland Browns, as Stugotz's only analysis is they're good, you've got a good football team, that you have gone from having a laughingstock football team for 20 years, wasting the career of Joe Thomas, 1 win in 2 years, always terrible, to you now need to win in the window of your running backs that are going to get burned up by workload, even if they're keeping your boy Chubb to 11 carries a game.
Super fresh. They're really.
But do they have to win in that window? Because, of course, that makes Baker Mayfield the guy who's completing 80% of his passes, throwing the ball downfield the first 2 weeks of the season.
I think you're right about the running backs window to a degree. Stefanski so far has done a good job balancing the snaps. And keep in mind, we have Demetric Felton, who's come in, and he's been freaking awesome for this team. Really dynamic player.
Is that the kick returner? Is that the
He's a
punt returner?
He knows how to play receiver. I probably butchered his first name, but he plays receiver, and he also plays running back. They taught him Jarvis Landry's route tree. He's a fascinating player. I'm not really sure why he fell to Cleveland in that draft. I think it's because they couldn't really find what position he was for, but he's doing a hell of a job in helping out that snap count.
But they have the best offensive line in football. So the running backs, you could almost plug in any running back. Chubb is great, but they have the best offensive line in football.
They have a great offensive line. They have a scheme that helps that offensive line, but I think the window that they need to win in is Baker's while he's on a cheaper contract.
Number 2.
This is not a good one. Patrick Mahomes.
Uh-oh.
Caboose.
Are you kidding me? What are you?
Silver bullets.
You were raving before the show weirdly because you've become football addicted just like you're gambling addicted. You challenged to Patrick Mahomes? Is it tied to his body? You were yelling about how you were challenging Patrick Mahomes to be better.
Patrick Mahomes needs to get on this now, I think. Now, Patrick Mahomes is still very young. I believe he's younger than Baker Mayfield. Just 26 years old. But I'm not sure Patrick Mahomes takes crazy good care of his body. He's got kind of a weird body type, a body type that I kind of saw like Big Ben in his 20s. I'm like, how is that going to age? I'm not saying be scared, be weary. I'm not even calling him out of shape. I'm just saying be careful. But here's a larger point on Patrick Mahomes.
It'd be so great if he got fat.
Patrick Mahomes.
Like if Patrick Mahomes just developed a weight problem that we couldn't have seen it coming, and like, what are the Chiefs going to do? Their quarterback's now 312 pounds.
I recognize the ass because I kind of have the same ass when I lose control a little bit, and I'm just saying get on that because you're bottom heavy, and that's not going to age necessarily well. But here's my challenge to Patrick Mahomes. And this is borrowed from several great, because I don't know what the hell I'm watching on Sundays. I'm just as confused as anybody when the Chiefs offense gets slowed. But they've been doing this for several years now, where it's just like, this is the greatest thing we've ever seen. Incredible offense. How do you stop that? You best not leave 5 seconds on the clock because it's way too much time. Bill Belichick in that playoff game where he slowed their offense down for a half, played zone. The league has been playing zone against the Kansas City Chiefs mostly. That's not how you stop the Kansas City Chiefs. It's just how you slow them. There is no stopping the Kansas City Chiefs. But by slowing them down, and I got this via Dan Orlovsky, via the Tapeheads podcast with Scott Pioli. Great pod. And through reading articles on Pro Football Focus.
The analysis on these pods are getting so good.
Phenomenal. And I realized, like, okay, I haven't necessarily seen, outside of a Cleveland game, which was kind of a fluke, that Tyreek Hill bomb. because it was a broken route, and Patrick Mahomes himself admitted he just threw it up there, unfortunately for my Browns. There aren't that many quick strikes for this Chiefs offense. They're being forced to play longer, cleaner drives. And Patrick Mahomes got away with a lot of shit early in his career. It was awesome. Hell, the throw that he almost completed in the Super Bowl, we're all like saying, yay, 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 yay. But that's not going to look good when he's 30, especially if he's got a big fat ass. It's not going to look good.
Whittingham, put it on the poll. Are you rooting
point.
for Patrick Mahomes to gain 60 to 70 bad pounds?
So he does that no-look pass, and we all freak out, and it's really cool, and we kind of ignore the fact that when we're watching the games, we're like, why are you doing this? This is completely unnecessary. It's only a matter of time before it bites you. But then he goes 2 seasons continuing doing it, and it's like, well, I guess it's never going to bite him. No, it can bite you when you have professional defensive coaches and professional players trying to bait you into bad situations. It's going to catch up. Scott Pioli said, Patrick Mahomes, he's lost his love for the football.
What?
Not of football.
Wow.
What? For the football.
What?
Wow.
He is
What?
disrespecting the Duke.
Is
You
he-
do
because
not do that.
He's reckless with it. He's not protecting it. Is that what he's saying? He's lost.
You can't be doing that no look shit if your drive if your
Wow.
drive count is going from 3 plays to 11 plays, and that's what defenses are just trying to do right now. Force Patrick Mahomes to play a clean football game. That's exactly why they blew that lead against Baltimore. They got too cute because they've always been cute. We're the Kansas City Chiefs. It's always super fun. I can no look past my Hardman and he'll go down 80
I
yards.
hate what you've become, okay? And I need to explain this to the audience because you right now listen to what you're advocating for as you swim through this pod stream where people have noticed, many people in the pod sphere here, as this entire market gets totally oversaturated, there has been a longing about this sport to understand it better. That just the number of things that have happened in the other sports where we're better at measuring it. And
Right.
now as everyone is in these fantasy worlds where there's big money involved and your Sundays, this is your weekend, a big part of your party, you're becoming the person, Mike, as you learn more and more about this game that we're watching. And we're all still like, oh, and I still don't understand it. And I'll never understand it no matter how much I'm listening to Adnan Virk's GM podcast or Scott Pioli. But what you just did on this show, and I won't allow it, is you're siding with Scott Pioli's stiff, constipated, starched, dry cleaned version of football that protects the football at all costs. And you're denying me Patrick Mahomes' no look recklessness free and clear. And you're siding with Pioli over Mahomes, and it's not okay by me.
I'm siding with the Duke.
Yes.
You got to
Yeah.
respect the Duke.
Mhm.
You don't disrespect the Duke. It's cute, it's fun, but it was just a matter of time before we started ascending to a mean.
You're doubling down on this. This is not an apology from you. I won't allow it. I won't allow this to be the show where Pioli's viewpoint on these things matters more than Mahomes, how he plays and how I would like to watch him play.
To Scott Pioli and Mike's defense, I mean, if he would have just set his feet and thrown it and actually led the receiver, it would have been a touchdown. But of course, he wanted to throw it sideways, looking at Tyreek Hill on the sideline, bounced off his hands.
Yeah.
They want Mahomes to play safe. I'm with Dan on this one.
Well, look, that was obvious, plain as day. Like I didn't need Scott Pioli to tell
I
me that he
will
was
not
disrespecting
allow
the Duke there.
this. I won't allow it around here. I don't mind being a dictator about this. You are right. He was wide open in the middle of the field, and if you simply set your feet, Peoples-Jones made some sort of ridiculous catch because your receivers are totally ridiculous. He had no one within 20 yards of him, and if he had just planted his feet, it's a throw any one of us could have made more accurately than it was made. I won't fucking allow it. Like that's not the show we're gonna be.
Well, then maybe you won't be seeing the Chiefs in January after all.
Something's a little off.
I'm
I've
just
been trying
saying.
to tell you.
I'm just saying, if
What?
they continue down this path, if they continue feeling themselves the way that they have,
Yep.
and Patrick Mahomes had an offseason in Tahoe where he was feeling himself.
Oh, yeah.
Thank goodness Freezing Cold Takes unearthed the video of him in Tahoe, knee deep in the silver bullets, by the way, because someone yells at him, "Watch out for Justin Herbert." And you want to know what Patrick Mahomes says? "I'll see it when I believe it." He said it just like that. Not I believe it when I see it.
I know.
saw it
He was
alright.
into the beers.
I'll see it when I believe it. That's silver bullets, And that's a disrespect to the Duke.
By the way, the 18-game schedule has affected another part of football nomenclature. We see everyone in January now. Everyone plays until January the 9th.
Oh,
wow,
shit.
that sucks.
I didn't think
Wow.
nomenclature was necessary there at all. Like I think it had no place in the discussion.
I finally see the Jets in January.
Chris Whittingham is a fancy lad.
And time for number 1.
This is very dramatic.
This one's easy. And look, I've already had one Brown on the list, but this is a body transformation that I'm really hoping you guys caught on. Baker Mayfield, Zaddy. Now, dude, Baker has put in the work this offseason. Part of what may have affected him outside of a terrible head coach and Freddie Kitchens was Baker was feeling himself too, disrespecting the Duke. Came into the camp and you see that body type. I'm like, how's this going to work? It didn't work. He put in the work this offseason. Have you seen this guy's quads?
Whittingham, why are you laughing at this?
The phrase disrespecting the Duke.
You got to put the Duke on a pedestal, man.
Listen, early on in your career, the Duke is your child. You have to care for the Duke.
You know what?
do.
I'm going to go ahead and just say it because this is not a football thing. This is an American thing. Culturally, this is what we are in our entertainment and everywhere else. I do believe we have to put football up there and we have to respect the Duke. All of us. Football, we have to pray to the altar of you do not. However, I will not allow you to not allow some artistic freedom and creativity from Patrick Mahomes within those confines of, yes, we all need to respect the Duke, but also, Patrick, you can paint outside the lines every once in a while because we've never seen what you do before.
He can paint outside the lines this Sunday against the Eagles. Go for it. Go crazy. Be Jackson Pollock out there. I don't care. But when you're playing good teams like the Browns, Ravens, and Chargers, respect the Duke.
Right. I mean, imagine if you're the Duke, Dan, you're thinking to yourself, hey, Patrick, do me a favor. Care about me. When you throw me, look where you're throwing me. Okay? Like, seriously. Treat it with tender
but
loving
this is
care.
what I'm telling you.
Set your feet before you throw me, Patrick.
I got it. Thank you, Stugotz. Tender, loving care. And what I'm telling you is I don't want Pioli's tender, loving care.
TLC.
Thank you, Stugotz. You want this relationship to be about love and respect with the Duke. I want Mahomes to fuck the Duke. Like just straight sex, lusty and big-assed. I don't want him to respect the Duke. I want him to treat it dirty and have the Duke love him anyway.
That's going to happen Monday night when he plays the Giants in like week 8.
Oh,
much football fornication. He's going to be like Sting with that shit.
The G-Man.
Dude's just going to come for 3.5 quarters.
Put it on the poll, Whittingham. Is Mahomes going to have tantric sex with the Duke against the Giants?
The G-spot.
It seems Daniel Jones has not been the issue in the games that they've lost as they start another season terrible. And it's been a couple where they're done as soon as the season starts because I think it's 5 or 6 straight where they've started 0-2.
A lot of people have been praising Daniel Jones, saying he's a good quarterback. He's gotten a lot better. It'd be funny if Gettleman hit on the quarterback, but still gets canned.
But what we're talking about here is the way the game is changing and the way the athletes are changing and the way the quarterback is changing. It would be amazing if somehow Daniel Jones, because he's not one of the unathletic ones, he's sort of Josh Allen, where you're like, okay, that will translate across the next 5 years of however this sport keeps changing. Daniel Jones does not look cement-footed. I think Daniel Jones surprised all of us. That's Gettleman thinking ahead, where look, this dude is an athlete,
yes,
and I can make him a quarterback. And it's looking at Daniel Jones and seeing that, and then with the Chargers, they look at Justin Herbert and they see that, and they're like, I'm not going Burrow. That's what I want. I want that body type and that athleticism going forward. If Gettleman got it right there, but got it wrong everywhere else because the team's not athletic enough, you don't look at them. Whatever Daniel Jones is doing, he's doing it with like a receiving core that feels like it's from 25 years ago.
Man, they spent money. They brought in Kenny Galladay.
It's like Kyle Rudolph.
No, but they have Shepard and Slayton. Those guys are always getting hurt.
Evan Ingram is a decent tight end. He got back. Slayton, Shepard, who got hurt. They have decent weapons on offense. They have Saquon Barkley. Their offensive line, not great. Their discipline, very bad. I mean, so many laps.
What's the point of having Judge if you're not going to get at least discipline? Isn't that the only reason to have Judge?
It's what he's there for. I think what went wrong for the Giants and Gettleman was the selection of Saquon Barkley, even after having the rookie year. But that position has become so interchangeable. You didn't need to waste a second pick in the draft on a running back. And now he's been injured. He's been injured for 3 seasons now, Saquon
Well, those
Barkley.
quads are good as we admire lower bodies and as we continue to celebrate body transformations. Mike, it's been a long time since Larry Fitzgerald's retired now, and it's been a minute since we could just look at a man.
He hasn't retired, Dan. I'm sorry. That's a fine. He just hasn't addressed it.
That is not a fine. He's not playing. So
So that's how you use it. That's how you say it.
Not official yet.
Yeah, he's just not playing right now. He's on
doing
sabbatical.
every Monday night with Tom Brady and who's the guy doing? Jim Gray. Yeah.
Well, how does this work? Because I'm legitimately, I shouldn't be fined for that. I think that's semantics that you got me on, because if he had retired, we'd still possibly be wondering, can Larry Fitzgerald come help a team at the end of the season? And we'd still be having the same conversation about, is Larry Fitzgerald actually done? Somebody's going to need a wide receiver, and that would be a great one to add to any offense.
Yeah, he's a free agent, technically. And I'm a little worried about this Tom Brady podcast because one injury, one COVID spell, and he'll find his way over to Tampa Bay. They're just lining up the Monstars.
But he's the rare free agent at the end of his career on his own terms. We all assume that somebody would immediately pick up Larry Fitzgerald if he said a contender. We assume that that's what he's waiting for. We assume that's why there hasn't been an official retirement.
Be killing it this year. You see what AJ Green did on Sunday? We thought AJ Green was toast.
To me, retiring gives off you're not playing of your own volition, which I think is what's happening here. Like, I think if he wanted to play, he would sign for a team for $3 million right now. But because he's not playing, I would consider that retiring. I also think that AJ Green's a good deal better than Larry Fitzgerald. I actually think, like, there were some people that were saying that Larry Fitzgerald was holding back that offense last year just by taking snaps from their other better receivers.
They were running 3 wide sets, and he's essentially a tight end because all he does is block down the line.
He is a tight end.
Yeah.
The tightest, one of the greatest in the history, Hall of Fame, first ballot tight end. And I want to know what the rest of this list looks like. Now, this is just your last list was Browns biased, so you're not going to just go around ogling Browns here, are you?
No, absolutely not. These are my top 5 lower halves in the NFL right now. Totally unbiased.
This is very exciting.
Number 5, Myles Garrett.
I mean, there's a Brown right there. We're starting with a Brown.
Tell me I'm wrong.
You're not wrong.
Tell me I'm wrong.
It's too low on the list. There's no way you have 4 asses better than that. There's just no way.
I do. And
No.
You want to talk about an offseason where you're putting in work to get that lower body looking delish? Those plyos. My God, pal. Jesus. You're plyo boxing 8 feet up in the air. How do you do that? Carry me while you do that, please.
Number 4.
Taysom Hill. Dude is sneaky. Man, I think we all know why, but the Storm and Mormon has got it going on. I mean, maybe he went on that mission to just work on that lower half. I'm not exactly sure, but this is aged like a fine wine, Dano. I am liking what I'm seeing.
Whittingham put it on the poll. Did Taysom Hill go on a glute mission this offseason? Number 3.
This one's very tough. But I'm going to have to give it to Christian McCaffrey.
Oh, wow. Good one.
So,
deserving. Yeah.
DK Metcalf, it's interesting. Like, he could have been anywhere here. He actually didn't end up making my list.
What?
Yeah. He didn't. He's got, because if I'm doing upper bodies, he's number 1.
Right.
Lower body, he's still got it going on. Yeah, I mean, Ole Miss, he and A.J. Brown, I mean, total freaks. But I'm going with Christian McCaffrey because I've seen the definition. I've seen the dehydrated definition. That dude might as well just slap his thigh before he takes a handoff. It is a show.
Oh, but Mike, this is what I would say to you. This goes back a ways. Like I know that we know this about these bodies on Sundays, but Stugotz, you can imagine, right? All of these human beings working all of the week under the height of weight training and science. You walk into an NFL locker room, and a Warwick Dunn, who is impossibly tiny, like one of the smallest people you will ever see in your life. And now the sport has evolved past him now to the Dalvin Cooks and everything else. But a Warwick Dunn, you'd look at his body and be like, oh my God, like this is made of granite. This is running around, and all of those people are bigger than him physically.
Little scat back.
And he was tiny, and he was tiny. These are boulders knocking into each other at high rates of speed all over the field. You'd be surprised by all those bodies shirtless, Mike, is what I'm saying. You happen to see McCaffrey showing you the goods.
Yeah, I mean,
I think your
he
list
should
would
show
be
it off.
yeah, but I think if we had a modeling competition with the NFL and just were like, show us your bodies, I think you'd be embarrassed by your choice there.
You have not seen Christian McCaffrey shirtless.
Yeah, I will not accept that. It's
you
just
haven't.
that he's sneaky.
No, it's not. It's not sneaky.
It is sneaky.
No,
Your
could
list
tell.
is sneaky.
No, like because it's white.
I didn't.
Because
say
I got
that.
two white guys.
I didn't say that.
Because I got two white guys.
That's not what
if
I
it makes
said.
you happy, I don't have any more white guys, Dan. But I'm telling you, go to his IG. This dude is ridiculous. That guy's in shape for any color skin. I'm not having it.
I'm not disputing that. I'm just saying that your list would look different if everyone in the NFL was naked in front of you. That's all I'm saying.
My list would look different. Look at this.
Yeah, I'm
Like,
gonna show
Jesus
him right now.
Christ.
Hold
Go
on.
to his IG.
I mean, look at
I understand,
McCaffrey.
but
look at that.
Look at his IG.
Chiseled.
Joey Galloway and Sterling Sharp are still built like that, and they haven't
No,
played
they
in a
are
long
not-
time.
Joey Galloway is not built like Christian McCaffrey is right
no,
now.
Dan, no.
Come on, man. Come on.
It's over.
Just admit that you're not clicking likes on these thirst traps that Christian McCaffrey
You're not
throws
seeing him
out.
in Mykonos with Olivia Culpo with
I-
the
I
Speedo
admit it.
on.
Okay.
Dude,
Dude,
did you see him on the
It's different.
sailboat with
I
Braxton
mean,
Berrios?
my God.
Did you see him on the sailboat with Braxton
By the way,
Berrios?
Braxton Berrios, what a come up.
Dude.
The salad is wicked.
Dude.
Great hair.
Great lower body, too.
Yes.
If this were a top 10, Braxton Berrios may find his little ass out there.
He's the Jets' best wide receiver.
Number 2.
Derrick Henry. Don't have to say much.
Nope.
You all agree, right?
Yep.
We can keep him moving.
Actually, yeah, enough said.
Enough said. Apostrophe NUFF. And number 1, Saquon Barkley. I don't think I've ever seen someone with legs like that. Like, ever.
You've
And
never seen Robert Newhouse.
It's just, at that position, with those legs, I couldn't believe it sustained an injury.
Put it on the poll, Whittingham. Are Saquon Barkley's thighs just 2 Robert Newhouses? Because I believe that that's where we are right now. That Stugotz is longing for a time. I believe each of Saquon Barkley's legs is 210 pounds.
I would have loved to have seen prime Jamal Anderson versus prime Saquon Barkley
Wow.
in like a bodybuilder show, because Jamal Anderson had huge legs, but I think it was a different era in pads too. And I think there was some performance enhancing there.
How about Christian Okoye, the Nigerian nightmare?
I think you just wanted to say his nickname.
That's all that happened there. He was physically a large man, but Derrick Henry. Christian Okoye was sort of Derrick Henry before Derrick Henry many, many years ago. Also not applicable
No one
in
was
this
Derrick
conversation.
Henry
That's right.
before Derrick Henry. There is no such thing. You look back at like the big bowling. You think Jerome Bettis could exist in today's NFL?
Earl Campbell.
You think Natron Means could exist?
There's never, maybe he's right. Can that be said? That nothing the size and speed of Derrick Henry at running back has ever existed in the NFL. You could probably argue that that you're watching an unprecedented human being, because none of those other backs could also run past your secondary. Whatever the bruising back is that we admire,
Right.
like the heavyweight boxing champion, because we're watching somebody be more of a man than other men in a sport where everybody out there is a gladiator, and you don't want to get stiff-armed by that dude, because we're humans, and that dude's just a monster, and he's been the 19-year-old kid playing among 11-year-olds since he was a kid, just a man-child.
Given the amount of carries he had in high school, which is legendary tales are told about that and those performances, the load that he had at Alabama, if he were to get injured this week, I've already lost a debate in terms of seeing it coming. The guy's had such a long career already to still be this good at that size. I don't know if in the 1990s it would have been like, you're a D-end. I'm not exactly sure. I don't necessarily, his talent jumps off the screen. That speed, you can't contain that and just stick it at DN.
It's almost like watching someone who 40 years from now will be a myth. You realize that you guys will talk about this the way your grandparents talk about Gale Sayers or Robert Newhouse.
100%. In fact, I think like when they revisit Tom Brady's history in New England,
Right.
history should say Derrick Henry did that to you. Because that was the last game at Foxborough for Tom Brady. Derrick Henry and those thighs did that to you.
I want to get to this Patriots book. I think that Stugotz is going to want some of this Patriots information. So we'll do that coming up next.
Witty, I've heard you go on and on about how truffle is a scam, and I
What?
think this is an instance for the white guys noise. But I'm not exactly sure why, because I know white people do love themselves some truffle. Hell, I love myself some truffle. A lot of people do. Dan loves himself some truffle because he eats and acts like a pig.
Fries joke.
Yeah, it's a fat joke.
That's a fine.
Yeah.
How's
So,
that a fine?
I mean,
but
you got the
also
joke wrong.
notoriously, white people on the seasoning, generalization. Not all people feel this way, but you could take some shots at their lack
Leave
of
something
seasoning
to
in
be
their food.
desired.
Yeah, but truffle is great. Truffle is delicious. It makes any dish better. I was saying that I love truffle hot sauce now. It just opened up a whole new portal for me. Why do you think truffle is a scam?
Because it is an adjective that is automatically made to make something more expensive, right? That's all you have to do is if you add the word truffle to it, it makes it more expensive. I've had 2 experiences with truffle. Number 1, I was at a restaurant in Las Vegas, and my brother wanted to add truffle butter to his steak. This truffle butter cost $16.
Delicious.
And there is not
worth every
a
penny.
butter in the world that is worth $16 to
Truffle
add
butter.
to a
Truffle
steak.
butter,
And
yeah.
Truffle
Yeah,
butter.
truffle butter.
Truffle
Yeah,
butter.
it absolutely is
I tried
worth
it.
$16.
I made a
I
song
was
about
very
it.
open to it.
Shredder.
I will tell you, I don't trust you on steaks. I'm just gonna say that right now.
What?
I'm not coming to Chris Whittingham for steak takes.
Really?
I'm not.
Really?
I don't
What's your
trust you with your
temperature?
steaks.
What temperature do you
What
get your
temperature
steak?
do
What's-
you?
yeah.
I
Tell me.
was formed in the crucible of the Hard Rock Stadium parking lot, eating churrasco with chimichurri.
Why are you
Not
judging
the answer to
him?
my
Why
question.
are you judging him as?
Why
wait
is
a
he
minute.
afraid to answer the question?
well,
How do you
because
like your
you-
steak?
I like it medium.
You are
What?
judging.
Okay.
You are judging his manhood. You are judging Whittingham based on his steak tendencies.
I don't know if
I mean,
it's the vocabulary,
It
if
is.
it's the glasses,
It
the
is.
if it's-
nomenclature.
Yeah, it's probably all those things. If it's the general aesthetic, but I don't think of Chris Whittingham as a steak guy.
You are making
He's
him.
a fancy lad.
You're
Yeah.
making him less
Right.
masculine, and you're assuming that he can't eat steak the way like Ron McGill does.
Yeah.
That you're not that kind. There, you
Yeah.
are. You. This is offensive.
Ron
What
McGill doesn't even cook it. I mean,
It's
I-
offensive. That
I
you
want to
would-
hear my steak moo.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah, just a slight char, a little griddle, and
So-
that's it.
So I really like red meat, like a good deal. But even for me, like medium rare is just it's too much. Like I don't like the taste of blood in my mouth. You know, I like to know that I'm eating food
All right.
and not a carcass.
A lot of poll questions.
Rambo, you are
here.
not. I
At
mean,
Lebitard Show, great 1980s movie
I want to
reference.
pick some
you got.
fur off of it.
Newhouse and
I-
Rambo.
I want to get some fur in my mouth.
I've got a lot of poll questions at Lebitard Show. You keep sinking into it, Stugotz.
I
I'm
will.
sure it won't be annoying at all.
I'm sorry, but I'm not.
Do you, when eating meat, like the taste of blood in your mouth? And do you judge a man's masculinity by his steak order? And also, is any butter worth $16? Because I just think of truffle as a gourmet oil. I know that Nicolas Cage now has this. It would be great if he won an Oscar for trying to get his pig back that finds him truffles, because truffles are a gourmet delicacy that are very expensive, but the way they're found is disgusting. It's just pigs burrowing around to bring you truffle. But I've always thought of it as just simply a delicious gourmet oil that is worth paying for, because it's sort of like an expensive fat sauce that's being put on your stuff that's going to make everything better. Do I have it right?
No, because I don't even think of it as just an oil anymore. That's the early days of truffle. Now I want to actually see the thing. I want
Yeah.
it shaved all over my
Yeah.
dish. There is nothing that feels more silky in this life than when a waiter comes over with the black truffle.
Oh, the black truffle.
and
Oh,
just shaves
please.
it like Parmesan at the macaroni
There's a
grill.
certain je ne sais
Excess.
quoi,
Oh,
man.
dude,
Yes.
this is an
Macaroni grill?
accoutrement.
Yes, it
is.
Roy, is forgive me, you've had this mask on, and I haven't checked in on you in a while. You're wearing Christmas trees. I've been worried about you. Your eyes were stinging in the first segment. That room smells awful, and I just walked in there once. You have now 18 Christmas trees on you, and I believe you to be disoriented. I can't tell because of the mask when you want to talk. And Mike Ryan just alleged, talking right past you, that truffle is a white thing. I have no idea how black people feel. I don't think it's even fair for me to ask you to speak on behalf of black people and truffle. But I need to know, is he right? Is truffle white guys?
Yes, it is white guys, but I do love truffle. It's a nice alternative to garlic. So yeah, I love truffle.
You get garlicky, huh?
Yeah, I'm a big garlic guy.
Elevated
I love
power.
Garlic
Yeah.
fries, yeah.
I like I'm taking my love for truffle out to the extremes now. Like truffle desserts,
Yum.
truffle hot sauce, savory dishes,
Mike,
truffle barbecue.
Yes.
Where would-
Truffle sushi.
Yes.
Potbelly did that. I was
Oh,
it rocked my
Potbelly.
world.
First off,
having
Potbelly.
truffle with
Oh, my
sushi.
God.
Are you kidding me?
The big eye tuna roll from Potbelly with the crispy rice with the tuna on top with a
Oh
little
my
truffle
God.
oil with a little sea salt
Oh,
on top.
take me
Mwah,
back
Chef
right
Mendy, my
now.
boy.
Where do you draw the line? Because it's
shout outs to local sushi
Dan,
places.
I'm
It's a
just
good
saying.
job, and it's
he's
always
a
get a
big
free
fan of the
meal.
show.
Yeah,
big fan of
Mr.
the show.
Crate.
Yep.
He wants to
Yeah.
come over and actually bring us some
Oh,
sushi.
dude, if that
I
guy
mean-
wants to bring that tuna
Done.
pizza, pour it directly
I mean,
into my
Dan,
mouth.
come on now. You're a sushi guy, right, Dan?
Well, now we're doing this, just commercials for local places down the street.
Gotta eat.
I also have the guy who makes the milkshakes at Mark Light Field who wants to come
Ooh.
over and make milkshakes for
And
us.
I got
Get him
Flanny's.
now.
And
Oh, my
now.
God.
And
Now.
Good.
And
Are
Flanny's.
you shitting me?
Flanny's,
We
yes.
have to wait a minute. Wait a minute. Can we finally cash in on some of this stuff instead of me buying pizza every week? Like, let's just sell our soul and gain like
doing it for years,
gain weight
Dan.
like Patrick Mahomes and just have milkshakes. Let's take finally ESPN. We couldn't do any of this stuff. Yes, this is the way the power of this is supposed to work. Tony Kornheiser, they celebrated 20 years last night, and he's always said, Stugotz, that the power of a radio show, that's what this was. It's sort of what it is as the world changes. And Kornheiser said the greatest reason to have a radio show is to get great tables in restaurants
Mm-hmm.
whenever you want them and to destroy your enemies. And we have not taken nearly enough advantage of either of these things under previous.
I'm not allowed to on one of the fronts.
Right.
Which front?
There's legal language.
Oh, for the love of God.
For all of us.
So I want to get into
I
some
have so much I want to say.
So much. One day.
So many charts I want to point to right this day.
But let's take advantage of this now. Let's get fat on milkshakes in excess. Let's get
Yes!
Yeah.
Miami's local truffle place extraordinaire to teach us of the value
Yeah.
of truffle
If that
desserts.
chef can, when I search my name on GIFs,
Mhm.
there is a GIF of Billy pouring confetti all over my
Yes.
face and into my mouth. You've
Yes.
probably seen it. I want that, but with black truffle.
Okay.
Can that chef do
But
Yes,
wait a minute,
absolutely.
Mike,
Cool.
you're still on black truffle, but you're really, I think you're
Burying the
bypassing.
milkshake?
I mean, this milkshake, wait a minute. It's from a
I
different- hold
waited
on.
5
Classics.
innings for a Mark Light
It's a
shake.
different time. This milkshake
Five
comes
college
like
innings?
1950s soda jerk making you something. This is a corner of Coral Gables where there are secret milkshake treasures that have ingredients that we don't know about, but this is a 5-inning
Magic,
line.
I think.
It's
It is-
cracked, Dan.
Yeah, magic is a secret ingredient.
Yeah, it's better than truffle, is it not? Like on the
Miles.
Well, can
This
you
is
imagine
not
if
a
they put truffle
scam.
in it?
Whoa.
A truffle shake.
I've actually never been to Mark Light Stadium, so I never had the milkshake.
Oh,
dude.
the
you're
lights.
missing out.
I mean,
We gotta
Hang
get
on.
it.
Hang on,
Chris, we got to make it happen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we got to take you there.
Yeah.
That is a
he's-
great little unique place in Miami. It's just poured concrete and shakes and freestyle music.
But I
That's
think-
all that is.
I think Roy just wants the shake. He doesn't want to go there. I mean, bring the shakes to Roy.
I mean, you can bring the shakes to Roy, but you gotta go.
But it's-
Miami
but Roy-
versus Florida, you gotta go.
Roy loves a ball game. Like he
Oh, yes.
he likes
Well, but
going
it's
out
not
to
just a
baseball
ball game.
stadium.
It should
I
be
love a ball
Roy's food review of like this local delicacy. This is, I can't explain this to the audience. This is a corner of the world from 50 years ago that doesn't exist anywhere else in Miami, where the pocket of rabid hurricane family that actually care about the program that way. Not like
yeah.
They care about it that way to know where the street corner is. I don't think it's Marklight Stadium anymore. It's A-Rod Park.
It's
at A-Rod Park.
At Marklight Stadium.
Never
Whatever.
dropped the Mark Light.
Yeah.
This is
Marklight.
what
But
else?
it's nothing
This
has
is like
changed.
Jackson's Ice Cream. These places across 40 and 50 years of history that make a better milkshake because they've been doing it for 5 goddamn decades better than you.
Now there's a box, but the milkshake stand is exactly how you remember it.
Yep.
They serve seltzers now, which I mean, they
risque.
couldn't do that, but you'll be happy to know that you still get this breakdown in the middle of an inning.
Mike, I think we need to go out to Marklight Stadium at A-Rod, that disgraced A-Rod Park, and we need to do a live remote milkshakes. You say you want to bring the program, University of Miami, back with guerrilla marketing, teaming up with Billy Corbin to make things happen. Saber rattle at the university.
This is going to do it.
A live remote from the milkshake land. We
Really?
can bring back the program. The baseball program has fallen into disarray. The football program, the basketball program. We can go on that street corner. Stugotz is already thinking of excuses. Do I have to drive? I
We
don't
just
want to
want
go
a
that
milkshake.
far.
I mean, you want to repair the entire program. I just want to shake. I mean,
Love that place. Oh man, place is the jam, and those shakes are incredible. But if you actually want to watch the game, don't get a shake because you'll be there forever. Because people just go to that stadium for the shakes.
You guys understand how much less equipped any of us are anymore in the on-demand age for a line and what it says about the tastiness of a milkshake? That people, and after the pandemic, we have less time for a line than we have ever had. All of us, like no patience. You bring that stuff to me. I'll make Bezos rich. I don't care if he can be in space, the only one living as this earth burns and floods. I'll pay for him to make a space universe because of the convenience of he brings shit to me. Cheaper than anyone else.
but we'll wait online for these things.
5 damn innings. Like, I'll take a line. You've transported me back to the 50s where there was no Bezos and fire and flood, and all I can do is get fat on a milkshake without thinking about saturated fats or how much kale is in it. I could just get fat in a different time.
At times, the line is longer than the one you'll find at the DMV. I mean, I'm serious.
5 innings long, and no problem. I understand. Because of how that thing tastes. Now, how do
At
they
DMV,
make...
I only get a license. Here, I got a Marklight shake.
You get a license to party? you get that music.
Oh, you come out and you get that song just in time. The straw's too big. I go through it too quickly. It's like 2 outs and I'm done.
I think the line goes all the way to the visitors' bullpen. Like, you get to catch warm up
awesome.
for a reliever for University of Rutgers.
Couldn't we factory produce a little more of that so that the line gets cut in
No,
half?
no, it's just a dude named Mitch,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and Mitch has reached out to us.
One shake at a time,
It's
man.
one shake at a time, and the dude named Mitch gets it done.
Okay, so how do we do this? How do we get Mitch over here with his magical machine and have a line down the street so people can see that these milkshakes are as good as we say they are?
I'm glad you bailed on fixing the entire program.
Yesterday, I think all of us, we had a giant smile on our face because Tim Kirkchin was a radiant light in the middle of our show. We were delighted to have him back. We talked top 7 bunters of all time. Baseball, Stugotz, is coming. What are you laughing about, Whittingham? What's funny back there?
I'm sad I missed it. I was on vacation.
it was
I missed
magical.
top 7 bunters of
Glorious.
all
It
time.
really was. It was magical, and we got cut off. He was at number 39 of 55 on some other list that baseball people love these lists, and baseball people know their numbers, and Joe Posnanski knows his baseball, and this book, Stugotz, the Baseball 100 that he has done, he has decided, because, I don't know, Joe, maybe you can explain it to me. You're a great writer. You're a great writer. You're somebody who can write about any interesting thing in the world and make it better. You've decided to obsess over the 100 greatest baseball players in baseball history. It seems honestly like a waste of your talent. It really does.
Thank you. No, that finally somebody has said it. You're totally right. It is a waste of my talent. I should be writing the great American novel, and it's a complete waste of time. But this is who I am. What am I going to do? So Baseball 100 greatest players in baseball history. It's a countdown in its own way, but it is also 900 pages and entirely written about. You know what it is for me, honestly, it's my story of baseball. It's why I love the game. It's exactly what it is. I decided to tell the story of why I love baseball through the 100 greatest players ever. And so people obviously want to argue about it, and that's awesome and that's great. But for me, this is much more about why I love it, why baseball matters, why I still think it's the greatest game. And I tell it through these players that I counted down. Major League players, Negro Leagues players, there's a Japanese player in here, 100 greatest players in the history of baseball.
Why do you love it so much?
I wrote 880 pages. This is it. It's all there for you, right
But
there.
he's not talking about the book.
No,
He's
just the
saying
game. How'd you fall in love with the game?
You
Right.
write very well. You write very well about love. You write very well about human emotions. This seems like a meticulous haystack search for something subjective that is going to be silly. People will argue about what your number 4 was. Your Japanese guy, your Negro Leagues guy will be controversial, and this will be something that is distilled, the minutia of it, into a boring kernel of uninteresting, where you could spend your life devoted to writing about bigger loves. And Stugotz is asking you, why do you love this thing like this, that you will neglect your children and you're just weird about loving this thing like this?
Yes, no, you're 100% right. No, look, I love the game because, I mean, I can give you a million reasons. I mean, when I wrote this book, you know, each of these players to me represents something that I love about baseball, whether it's the father and son story of Carlton Fisk, whether it's the story of triumph of Jackie Robinson, whether it's the story of bittersweet, remorse of a guy like Oscar Charleston, who never got to play in the major leagues and yet might have been the greatest who ever played. Whether it's the story of the craziness that is Max Scherzer, whatever it is, each of these players to me represents something that I just love about baseball. And I got to tell you, I mean, this is the weirdest thing. So yesterday, the book comes out. The book came out yesterday, and I'm like, this is great. I've written this 900-page, 300,000-word book about baseball, and it was like a phenomenon. I mean, it went up to like number 4 on Amazon. Like the whole country was buying it. I'm hearing from 1 million people about this book, and I thought, because my thought is exactly like you. It's baseball. Who's going to care about this? But I think a lot of people do, and it somehow it seems to have tapped into something about this game that people still love despite its many problems.
Joe, as the game drifts further and further away from the game that you fell in love with as a kid, do you find yourself still loving it the same way?
Yeah, but sure, there's no question. I mean, you look at so many parts of the game. You look at how few balls are in play and all the strikeouts, and the game's getting longer, and some of these other things. But yeah, I still do. Look, the players are still great. I think that's to me what it comes down to. I mean, it's just as much fun for me now to watch Juan Soto play as it was watching, my heroes when I was a kid. I mean, the players are as good, better than ever. I heard you guys talking about football, and I'm doing a football countdown now, so we'll talk about that later. But you guys are talking about the Derrick Henry versus Christian Okoye and all of that. And, the players are better now in football. They're bigger, stronger, faster. And the same thing is true in baseball.
I want to talk about Joe's other book, about the Joe Paterno book, in a second, because I found what happened there to be fascinating, because Joe is such a good storyteller. And the book description from Simon & Schuster, longer than Moby Dick and nearly as ambitious, The Baseball 100 is a one-of-a-kind work by award-winning sports writer and lifelong student of the game, Joe Posnanski, that tells the story of the sport through the remarkable lives of its 100 greatest players. And then George Will, the poet. Baseball has a lot of poets, and George Will is like one of the grandfathers, Bill James, of people loving this sport, this historic sport, writes, Posnanski must already have lived more than 200 years. How else could he have acquired such a stock of illuminating facts and entertaining stories about the rich history of this endlessly fascinating sport. I'm guessing, Joe, long way of getting to, you're probably making this a story about America, about humans, about emotions. You are a very human writer, so it's not actually a baseball book at all.
I don't think it is. I mean, I think if you're a baseball fan, you'll hopefully find your baseball in it. But no, I mean, of course it is for me. And that's what's so cool in my view about what this book is, because it is a countdown. And so people would see, okay, it's the 100 greatest players. In each essay, I'm going to be arguing about why Ichiro is ranked here, why Tony Gwynn is ranked here, why Sandy Koufax is ranked here. I don't do any of that. None of the essays talk at all about the rankings. The rankings to me are secondary. In fact, there are players who are ranked by numbers that I just connect them to. So Joe DiMaggio, for instance, in this book is number 56 because that's the number of his hitting streak. So the rankings for me are totally secondary. I love arguing about them. People love arguing about them. That's great. But it is truly a book about America, about why I love baseball, why baseball has mattered through all the years, and about these individuals. Maybe my favorite essay in the entire book is about Carlton Fisk, because it's about his dad and how hard his dad was on him, and how that drove him through his life and led him to the Hall of Fame. And at the Hall of Fame ceremony, his father was there, and he actually spoke to his father sort of in the most honest way that he could. And it was, I just feel like that's not baseball, that's life, right? And that to me is what's at the heart of this book.
You explain why you did that with DiMaggio, tying it to the 56 game hitting streak. Do you know how many people are going to be outraged that Joe DiMaggio is 56th on your list?
Oh yeah.
So much outrage. This book is going to have so much. Give us the greatest outrages. Like, people are going to spit at you. Poznansky, you don't know what you're talking about. You're a racist. You're a communist. What are the most controversial things in the book? You are not a controversial writer. You are a writer that I love reading because what you write is so very human. You did not choose the path of I'm going to be a columnist who writes well, judging others and smearing them. And so because I admire your work so much, I want you to suffer greatly the controversies of this book. And so what will they be?
Oh, well, DiMaggio is going to be big for sure. People are not going to appreciate the art of making him number 56. Number 2 and number 1 are going to have been huge. Willie Mays is my number 1. I'll tell you that. And Babe Ruth is number 2.
Hold on a second. Hold on. You just ruined it. You ruined what
I know.
No, you just ruined the whole thing.
The Say Hey Kid.
Okay, thank you. The Bambino, yes. Number 5, Poznansky. Let's just give people the list. Let's be done with this. You've ruined the list, but let's just do with our fanfare. Number 5, the 5th greatest baseball player of all time, according to Joe Poznansky, is, and this is the definitive list. This is the final word.
Oh yeah, there's nobody's even allowed to argue with this. Number 5 is Oscar Charleston, the great Negro League player. There we go. We got the music for it and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Number
Bullshit,
4,
politically correct, woke guy.
DiMaggio,
what are you
52
talking about?
spots behind
Now this
him?
guy knows about the Negro Leagues. What are you talking about? One of the 5 best players ever as a black man. What are you speaking of?
I am speaking of greatness, true greatness, and when Buck O'Neill, my great friend Buck O'Neill, my first book was about him. Buck used to say that Willie Mays was the greatest player he ever saw in the major leagues, and Oscar Charleston was the greatest player he ever saw, period. And there are many, many people who've said that as well. He is number 5. You want me to go on?
Yes,
do I do the rest
number
of this
4.
list? What do you
Yes,
think?
please. Number 4.
Number 4 is Henry Aaron.
Hammering Hank.
Hammering Hank is number 4. Here you go. You want controversy? You want to know what people are arguing about?
Number 3.
Barry Bonds.
Ooh, yeah, you're right. Dude, nobody should be arguing about that. That guy, there were only
It
2.
should be number 1.
His family is the greatest family in baseball history. Just his lineage.
No doubt. Number 2, Babe Ruth. There we go. And number 1 is Say Hey Kid, Willie Mays.
Yeah, the Sultan of SWAT.
Controversial. Your timing was impeccable there, Stugotz.
Thank you, Dan.
That is going to be controversial. How dare you say Willie Mays is better than Babe Ruth?
Yeah. It's amazing. I mean, you guys do it because, we all do all these different sports. Babe Ruth, what is this hold that Babe Ruth still has? No other sport Nobody's fighting for Sammy Baugh as the greatest quarterback in history. Nobody's doing that. Nobody talks about guys from the 1950s as being the greatest NBA players. But man, people will hold on to Babe Ruth. Not only do they think he's the greatest, I mean, passionately believe that he's the greatest. And that's a good part of baseball or a bad part of baseball? You guys can tell me.
The Colossus of Clout.
We are always around here making fun of the idea that Babe Ruth is mythologized quite that way when he was playing against people who had second jobs as plumbers.
That's right.
And so, like, I mean, it's silly. It's 100-year-old. Well, you know your sport, though. Your sport with its history. I'm assuming you're going to tell that story, too. You are such a Negro Leagues advocate. I don't know. Joe, I don't believe that there's a writer in the country that supports that cause the way that you support that cause. So you know how much bullshit is wrapped up in the threads of your top 10 list.
Oh, yeah. There's two. I have 2 Negro Leaguers in my top 10 list because number 10 is Satchel Paige. So yeah, and Josh Gibson is right there, and Pop Lloyd, and guys that people have never heard of like Bullet Rogan and Smokey Joe Williams, and I mean there are players in this list that people have even very, very passionate baseball fans will not have heard of. But that's part of it. That's part of the reason I wrote it. It's what I love about it. Is I get to tell these stories that people have not heard before.
Did you penalize Ty Cobb?
No, I don't think I penalized him. He was not the world's best. Look, Curt Schilling's on this list, so so that you can have fun with that. I didn't penalize him. What I tried to do, again, there's the ranking and then there's the essay, and in the essay, which has nothing to do with the ranking, I really tried to get at the heart of who this guy really was, and which is almost impossible to do because he's been demonized, and then lately there've been a whole bunch of efforts to sort of recast him as completely misunderstood, and with him and with everything in life, man, it's somewhere in the middle, right?
I mean, he called Babe Ruth the N-word once.
Yeah. Oh no, he was a bad guy. I think at the end of the day, he was a bad guy, but he also was very much pro integration. He was a supporter of Jackie Robinson. I mean, it's weird. Like nobody is all one thing. I mean, that's I think that's one lesson we learn all the time.
If you're not familiar with Joe's work, because it's a body of work in sports writing that is very impressive, and it's got some unusual choices in it, Stugotz, because Joe Posnanski could have been one of these guys who ran and got the money of television, but he kept writing, and he kept writing through history, and he's an extraordinary writer, one of the best you've ever seen in sports writing. And the reason the Baseball 100, I know it's going to be good without even knowing anything else, is because of how much I believe in this man's skill and talent when he cares about something like this. But I wanted to ask you, Joe, because you and I have not talked about this publicly or privately. I believed because you were at the center of the greatest sports scandal ever, Joe Paterno, you were writing a book. I believed when that book was going to come out, I'm like, holy shit, Joe Posnanski is about to write the best sports book ever written, because this talent, this guy, the way he sees the world and his gifts as a writer in the middle of this scandal, he is going to write this sports scandal for our times. We're going to see it in a way we can't see anything because he's embedded in the life of Joe Paterno. And then when the book came out, I don't know what happened. I don't even think it's fair to you to just dismiss it as a work of apology for Joe Paterno as you advocate for these things where, like, I'm going to tell a complete person's life. I'm going to tell all of the nuance here, and then you get viewed as an apologist for Joe Paterno because the book was not scathing enough. It was not reported inside enough in a way that, wait, this is the greatest crime we've ever seen here, Joe, the suffering of children. You've got to write about that in a way that scathes Joe Paterno.
Yeah. So you want me to just sort of talk a little bit about what I went through, what my thought was?
It seems unpleasant because that's a great work. You pour your love and your life into a work, and I don't know if I think it's unfair, my expectation for you there, but you're in the middle of it with these human beings living the great sports scandal around the TV trucks, and the book fell flat for some.
It's unfair, but it's a compliment to Joe because you had that writer in the middle of that particular story.
Whatever. I'm putting the burden of expectation on him, and so I'm sorry to do that because it feels almost disrespectful as much as I admire this man's writing, right? That feels like when all that happens, I can't imagine the pressure that fell on your head.
Well, look, and here's, let me just start off by this, because I mean, we haven't talked about this publicly, but I can tell you, I'm extremely, extremely proud of that book. I think it's a great book. I really do. I've always thought that. It was an impossible situation to be in. I went there to write a certain kind of book, which was going to be the story of a person's life. And then the scandal hit, and I was definitely very much in the middle of it. And, I was one of those things where every single day, every day, I would have to pump myself up and say, you're here to write the truth. You're here to write a full story about a man's life, everything included, and including the scandal, including his many failings, but also including his triumphs and all of the good things that he did. And that's what I'm here to do. And there's nobody who's going to like that when I write it, because there's going to be all of these people that are going to say it's an apology for Joe Paterno, which I do not believe it was at all. And there are going to be a bunch of people who are going to say, oh my God, how could you say anything bad about this sainted person? And I heard from all the sides on a book like this. There's no way around it. And it was so emotional at the time too. Obviously, if I'd had time and done it 10 years later, people might have viewed it differently, but coming out the way it did right after the scandal, which is just the way the timing worked out. I think the New York Times said I was the unluckiest writer since the guy working on the biography of John Kennedy when he got shot. So all of those things, I think, make you ask yourself, okay, what do I represent here? What am I trying to do? What am I trying to accomplish here? And for me, what I was trying to accomplish was to write an honest book, an absolutely honest book. And I feel that's what it is. And, I recently heard from some people. I went back and looked at the book because I heard from some people who said, I really was hard on you when you wrote this book, and I've reread it, and I realize now that it's really good, and it really does tell a full life story, and it really does go into the scandal and take him to task for those things that look, that he became the scandal, and of course he was not the person he was not Jerry Sandusky, and yet it became the Joe Paterno scandal. And as I'm writing a book, I've got to differentiate and separate and what could he have done, what should he have done, what didn't he do, and that was a big part of it. But it was not the book. The book was the story of a man's life, and like I say, I'm incredibly proud of it. It's the hardest book I'll ever write, and I feel like I stood up and wrote the most honest book I knew how to write.
Well, what a fascinating and tricky spot you were in. I'm wondering, Joe, at the time when you're in it, when you're in the middle of it, did you consider scrapping the original plan and just writing about the scandal?
No, I really didn't. I didn't feel that wasn't the book I came to write.
Right.
And I would never have like if I was outside and the scandal happened and somebody had come to me and said, hey, we want you to write a book about the scandal, I wouldn't have even considered it. That would never have been anything I had no interest in that whatsoever. The only thing I was interested was writing about a very complicated man and the life that he led. And the book was going to be, before the scandal ever happened, it was certainly going to unveil some negative things about Joe Paterno. And I feel like this is a classic story, Shakespearean in some ways, about somebody who refused to stop, refused to quit, refused to retire, refused to just at some point say, my time is past. And it leads to this horrible, horrible scandal that would have happened without him, by the way. But it was something that he could have stopped in some way, shape, or form. And so, yeah, no, it had to be. That was the book I came to write. I had to write the book that I wanted to write.
So let him go on this note, but tell you guys I would find art in this, right? Because of the unluckiness of that situation. And I didn't mean to suggest that you shouldn't be proud of that book, but there would be symbolic art, though, if in that book with the scandal and everything around it, you're proud of it, but it didn't get received well, and that with the Baseball 100, you might actually see people to see what a human writer you are by choosing the dumbest possible thing to do with your time as somebody who likes to write about big, deep things. I would love for America to love this big, giant, dumb book of yours because it makes them feel something, but you are an outcast in the writing community because you tried to apply nuance and humanity and truth to the noise around, understandably, and the emotion around pedophilia. Joe, I want to have that conversation with you a little longer at another time, but I'll let you go on this note. The Baseball 100, I'm sure it's good because he wrote it. Joe, thank you for being on with us.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Joe. DiMaggio, 56.
Witty is going to provide a public service here. I don't know if Meadowlark needs to hire somebody to do this, but because we are really grateful for the support of our audience, how they care, the loyalty, and we understand that you hate a million things about the new incarnation of the show. But Witty has had, you know how Dak Prescott said he's gotten help? He's a better quarterback than he's ever been because he's gotten a new perspective. He's gotten to watch football from a different angle on the sidelines, and it taught him a lot, and now he thinks he's got more expertise. Witty, the last couple of days, has been off as we change the vacation schedules and the time off weekly around here and give you different combinations. And he's gotten to listen to the show while not in the middle of doing the show. And he's been enraged at whatever the device is that is talking to him because of the mistakes that are slipping through the cracks around here. So what are the mistakes of the last 2 days? I think we need a stat boy around here that does some of this and speaks on behalf of the audience that's yelling at its devices and mad at us because we're making mistakes.
Someone who's keeping track, keeping the stats.
Well, I don't know if you guys watched any of this, so I'll get to Whittingham in a second with what he's noticed over the last few days. But yesterday, PTI celebrated 20 years on the air, and Pablo did Tony and Mike have merited, I'm going to get nostalgic for a time at ESPN here, where Tony and Mike birthed a whole bunch of sports journalists, and one of them is now Pablo Torre, who does ESPN Daily, a news magazine show, came up through the highly questionable, through our show, and so this represents a time block, right, for an hour of television in your life over the last decade at ESPN. And Stat Boy, the story was told last night by Pablo Torre. He was the journalist on the story, and he's doing it in his podcast to celebrate one of the great sports shows of all time. I think, Stugotz, that I was the person who filled in the most on that show for anybody, and I am enraged at the producers and ESPN for turning me into a footnote that is simply people hated Le Batard so much. That's all you saw from me as Pablo Torre did an hour of television. I'm not actually mad about that. I'm delighted by it. Okay. It's exactly as it should be. That my entire, because the show's those two guys.
I was angry on your behalf.
They made Frank Isola only fill in Frank, and that's his only appearance on the show.
The Iceman.
Yes, and so those two guys, they're the show. And I was hated like that because I was one of the people who came in. Years later, Eric Rydholm, the producer, apologized to me. He said, we went too hard on the hateable. The people who were sitting on the fence, we pushed them over because we had to beat them to the joke. He apologized to me. He really did. He's like, we had to beat them to the joke. You weren't actually that hateable. But the only role I had on this show, and you didn't see it, right, Stugotz? The hour that Pablo Torre has done on these guys. You spoke glowingly yesterday about the show because we were doing that, but you hate Wilbon. If you hate Wilbon, there were things in this that you will also hate because he's very arrogant about his opinion.
I respect Wilbon. I think what we found out during our time at ESPN was that Wilbon hates me. I mean, that's, and then because he hates me, I started to hate him. But I still respect the hell out of Michael. You can respect and hate someone at the same time, right?
Put it on the poll, Whittingham. Can you respect and hate someone at the same time? Because all of this is to say, before we get to Whittingham's corrections as our fancy lad stat boy, those dudes gave us permission on everything. Like they godfathered in that whole decade of television where I was fortunate enough to have a spin-off show off of just their extras as in a time in television that was just totally different at ESPN. It was a glorious time, and those guys birthed it all, and they deserve that celebration because I've told you that everything we have in this environment is formed based on me wanting what they had.
Right.
Family behind the scenes, people connected together, working on the same thing, laughing, loving. And that's what that's the opportunity that came when you came into my life to make this what it is. And those guys gave permission on all of that stuff and birthed, like Kornheiser he loves texting me, millions. They gave you millions. Because he knows that like across a decade of debate television, those guys made the path from sports reporters. This goes way back, but Lupica was jealous of those guys because sports reporters was the big show, the magazine show, and then they started this daily thing off to the side that was goofy and irreverent, and they had chemistry and partnership. And sports reporters as an entity became a less popular thing, and Pardon the Interruption became one of the best television shows of all time.
But they both took a great deal of pride, correct, in making their friends' careers, making them a lot of money. I mean, who wouldn't? That's a fabulous thing to be able to do with that platform.
So I will leave it at that. 20 years well earned, well celebrated, and they deserve every compliment that they get as pioneers. All of them that did that show. The producers behind the scene, too, because those are lifers and family members, and everyone has had a lot of fun laughing and making money on Disney's dime, creating a decade of television on ESPN. But Whittingham, the corrections from the last few days that have enraged you.
So I was sat on a plane yesterday just shouting, "There's an N in Tungo Vailoa," because you were saying that Scott Hansen was butchering the pronunciation of that by including an N when maybe there is some other bit of the name that he's mispronouncing. But despite the fact that there is no N in the spelling of Tungo Vailoa, you do say it. The first thing you say is the word tongue, Tungo Vailoa.
Nope.
No?
No.
What do you mean no?
There's not an N in
There's
there.
no N. You don't get to tell me there's an N when there's no N. It's just like Patrick Surtain. It's Surtain, dude.
There's
an I there.
N.
Clearly.
This is broadcast. You're talking broadcasterese, Whittingham, and I think it's fair. He's saying the person gets their name pronounced the way they want it pronounced, the way they say it.
Yeah, but they don't get to add letters to the name.
No, but it's not that, like, it's not even a personal preference thing. Like Surtain is a personal preference thing. Tungo Vailoa, like, that is a language of origin thing. Like, for example, Turkish names. There are some names in Turkey where they begin with a C, but you pronounce it as a J, because in that language, a C makes a J sound. I'm not going to tell you that you should make a C sound because that's how I say it in English. In your language, that's how you pronounce that. So Tungo Vailoa, I don't know what the language of origin, my presumption would be Samoan, but I don't know for sure, is that's how you say it in that language.
So it's JJ Sabathia?
Whittingham pushes us off.
I mean, now I don't want to get into a cultural
No, we
war,
lose.
but
No, I think you need to.
there's just no N.
I think
There's no N.
you need to fold your hand
But there's no
on
N.
different languages, dialects, and that
Now,
those.
I have told people how to pronounce their names before, and I will continue to, because, like, for example, there's, like, players that have very obviously Hispanic-sounding names, but choose to not pronounce it that way, and I'm like, listen, guy, pronunciation guide.
Listen
audience-
here, Davy Lopes.
Yeah, Davy Lopes, okay.
Looking
Matt
square at you.
Diaz. Matt Diaz looking right at you. It's Diaz, okay? Let me tell you something. But, like, they're soccer players
No,
as
please
well.
tell us that
Yeah.
something. No, I'd like to.
Let me tell you
Please
something.
expand.
Look,
I
Whittingham,
didn't-
people don't
Evil.
know. Whittingham, people don't know that everyone around here is brown. That you are not an American fancy.
Full-blooded Colombian, Chris
Yes,
Whittingham.
you are not an American fancy lad. You are a Colombian, yes, full-blooded Colombian. So please, if you have something for Matt Diaz, give it to him here.
Escúchame. Matt Diaz, okay? Just as, look, there's a couple of soccer players. I feel bad. I'm going to start taking out guys.
Take him out.
please.
Take him out.
Don't feel,
Take
no,
him out.
let
Take
it
him
go.
out.
Let
Take
the
him out.
Colombian that has been repressed inside of you,
There's
fancy lad, let him soar.
There's this midfielder for FC Dallas. His name is, he insists it's Cervania. Let me tell you something, buddy. It's Cervania, okay? Let me tell you, okay? Cervania. And don't try and correct me. There's also some other guy who plays for San Jose. His name is Shea. He insists it's Salinas. I'm like, it's Salinas. Okay, and I was told, hey, you know, he says that Celine overpronounce it. No, I'm gonna say his name correctly.
Yeah.
How about that? How about
That's
you
right.
say his name?
Well. Look who turned around.
Yeah, this is the thing, though. I believe that he is right that Tagovailoa, that ethnically, we're not allowed to say how their dialect or
what's
the
a comp?
Turkish dialect is, or well, he just said Turkey. I don't.
No. But what's a comp for Tagovailoa? Because we've had several Samoan players. I've watched, Lord knows, plenty of Hawaiian football, and I haven't seen someone just add an N where there isn't one. That is a new thing for me.
Well, perhaps we should get that perspective, which is not represented on our Colombian Miami-Dade show, but we may need some Samoan diversity in here to help us with where it is we're being indelicate.
Anybody want to tell Terrell Owens that's Terrell?
No, actually,
No,
no.
leave that one alone.
Let's go ahead. Yeah,
I'm not going to tell Dwayne Wade. He spelled Dwayne wrong either.
That's true.
No,
True.
you spell it. That's how I spell it now.